one thing that I think really sets the best climbers apart is like their mental game. They believe deep down that they can do something. There's no doubt in their mind, and they are willing to put in that effort, and they're willing to like sit there day in and day out to try to do something hard. And that right there, like having the ability to flip the switch and just say in their own head and to believe it thoroughly that they're going to climb the boulder, maybe not that day, but they know that they can do it, and to be able to then like execute that and to try every day and to really have that belief when they pull on the wall with no doubt in their mind that they can do it. I mean, that right there is I think one of the biggest things that set good climbers and great climbers apart.
Jimmy Webb, welcome to the Testpiece podcast, man. Psyched to have you.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. Stoked.
Yeah, for anyone that's listening and doesn't know who you are, please turn off this podcast. Testpiece is not the podcast for you. And that's because, Jimmy, you're one of the best climbers the sport has ever seen. You've given so much of the sport with your development lately, too. And I just want to start off by saying thank you for that, man. I think that's super, super, super important and often gets overlooked. Is just that contribution to the sport. So thank you.
Yeah, totally. No, thank you. It's always good to hear people are appreciative of, people who go out and develop a bunch of new stuff. And, it's kind of like one of the reasons why we do it is just to have it out there for everyone else to go and climb on too. So it's rad to hear that people enjoy that.
Yeah. I mean, places like these giant boulder fields, like Buttermilks, it makes it more fun when you start out like knowing where to go. And I know it sounds like it's how you start your journey, and then
Mhm.
hopefully people graduate to the level you're at where you then add to to the pantheon of climbs available. But you need to have someone that leads the way. And so, yeah, I don't know. That's just important.
For sure.
Important.
Yeah, I totally agree. 100%.
All right. Well, just also wanted to thank you for somehow squeezing the podcast in between these perfect powder days. And now I found out you have a trip coming up to Switzerland. And dude, just living the dream. That's just booked solid with seriously fun outdoor pursuits. Good on you there.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, this is great. I'm super stoked to be a part of this. So can always find the time.
So I got to ask, even though this isn't totally climbing, but something I'm struggling with is how do you even balance going out and snowboarding a bunch and doing backcountry where there's a ton of hiking? And then I know you're still training. I know you're amped to get out to Switzerland. So you're climbing probably at as high a level as you can, but like, how do you balance that at all?
It's yeah, it's hard. It's definitely hard. I feel like a lot of times my climbing sessions can be a little bit compromised because I'm pretty wrecked from being out riding all day, or if it's, snowing a bunch, then we're kind of out like every day and big long days in the mountains. So yeah, the climbing part can be a little bit compromised, but overall like physical activity like all day every day is like also I think a little bit helpful for me, going into climbing, and also like mentally too, like having a bit of a break and being able to focus on something else that motivates me as well kind of takes all the pressure in a way off of like focusing 100% on climbing all the time. um so in the wintertime I don't climb that much outside. I mean, obviously here in Tahoe things get pretty snowy, so it's a really nice reset for me to kind of like focus a little bit on snowboarding and balance the whole climbing thing, and it really helps me I think get motivated. Like right now we're about to exit February and going into March, and that's like about the time that I'm like, okay, cool, like I'm psyched on riding and that's been fun, but like now I'm really psyched to go climbing, and I feel like my motivation can be, it's like peaking at that point where I'm like, I'm so ready to go touch a rock, like it's fucking ridiculous. So now I'm psyched, and I think that goes a long ways in terms of like training, like how do I maintain, and like that's a big part of it. So kind of finding the balance and all that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And when you've been doing it for as long as you've been doing it, having those Having a little break isn't so bad all the time. And I know you do more developing, more projecting, and that kind of type one fun of just being out there on a powder day and just I don't know. It's also just as soon as I moved into this area and I started getting into snow sports like I did as a kid, but it's very different to go out into the mountains when it's fresh powder and there's no one there than, you know, going into the crowds. It's like the difference between climbing at the buttermilks and going to a crowded gym for a birthday party. It's
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't blame you. But I'm guessing that you grew up in the southeast, so I'm guessing you didn't grow up snowboarding. Did you know? Is what sports did you do growing up, and how did that lead to you being in the mountains doing all these mountain sports?
Yeah, when I was younger, played soccer for a really long time. I skateboarded a bunch too from when I was a kid. Definitely no snow sports. We didn't have much snow there, and if it did snow, it was like apocalyptic, like 2 inches, and the whole like town shuts down. Uh, so yeah, I just grew up doing like the standard stuff. I played other sports too a little bit, like baseball and football a little bit and all that kind of stuff. But
Dude,
mainly
some
soccer and
really good American sports there, dude. You're just
sure,
like
yeah. Well,
baseball, football. So all right,
all the
yeah.
things, yeah. Wrestled, karate, like all that crap. I kind of did it all a little bit, yeah, for sure. But the two things that I did the most definitely was soccer and skateboarding. Like that was like my main focus, really, until I found climbing.
Yeah, how'd you even find climbing and how old were you?
I was about 17 when I found climbing. Um, yeah, started dating this girl, and she was on the climbing team. We had a small climbing team at our school. So met her and she was like, "Hey, I'm going climbing today, like whatever." I'm like, "Okay, cool. Yeah, let's go. I'll go. Sure." And then by doing that, I met a guy named Jeremy Walton, which turned out to be like one of my closest friends at that time. And we kind of just hit it off and I got really psyched on climbing, obviously. And he was already really good climbing like V8 or V9 at that point. And so it was like perfect, like just psyched to go and climb with him. And it was really funny too because that was like my junior year in high school. But in when I was a freshman, my mom actually was like, "Hey, why don't you try out for the climbing team? This looks cool." And I was like, "What the hell no?" Like I was like, "That sounds like the most lame thing I've ever heard." Like, no, I'm skateboarding. Like, no. And it's funny. And then like 2.5 years later, like I go climbing and I'm like, this is the most amazing thing in the world. Like, and then from then on out, I was like every day in the gym, 7 days a week, like all the time climbing, going to the O-bed. That was basically the first place I ever went outside climbing. And we had a small spot too in town near Maribel called Look Rock. That was pretty cool too. That had a couple things to climb on. So
How how did it go those first couple of years with you climbing? Were you instantly good? Did you struggle with it? It sounds like a lot of the sports you did before were more lower body focus, I would say. And so,
mhm.
yeah, how'd it go when were you clearly going to be Jimmy Webb when you? I mean, 17 is a pretty darn late time to start, also.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It went pretty well, pretty fast. I was just really psyched, and I think that's always been my personality too. It's like if I'm gonna do something, I'm usually pretty psyched on it, and I'm gonna do it like 100%. So that, and also having Jeremy already climbing like V8 or V9, I'm with him every day, and I'm climbing, and I'm like, I want to be that good. I want to, and I could see what he's doing and know that that's possible, right? You can like see that that's attainable. So then you kind of like, it's quicker to kind of like start to rise to that level when you're climbing with somebody better than you. So yeah, the first year it went pretty well. I think I basically started climbing about as strong as Jeremy after the first year. And then after that, he started going, he was getting really strong and we were pushing each other and it was great. First few years were awesome. That shit was really fun. And we fed off of each other a lot, and it was like a friendly rivalry, like a friendly competition almost, like trying to
The best,
just
yeah.
be the best, and like seeing him do well made me want to do well, and vice versa. So
That's always the best part about I think climbing is that it's like this weird kind of friendly competition always. Like it's really just you and the rock or you and the plastic, but then like you're climbing with your buddies and then they do a move easily and then somehow it helps you do the move. And I don't know, I think those experiences are really formative when you're young. Okay, so I have heard this about you. I haven't witnessed it personally, but I have heard that you are good at many sports. Like you are, and not just sports, you're good at chess and pool. And I've heard that you get a little obsessed. I heard that from Roman too. Roman was like, dude, when Jimmy started snowboarding, he wanted to snowboard and just went out a lot. And
Yeah.
so, you know, it's this ability to excel at multiple sports or even games. Like now, as you get older, when you pick up something new, whatever the sport may be or game, like, do you notice any like thread between them? Like, do you see any like continuity that you are able to take the skills you've learned in one thing that you've done at a high level and apply it to a new area?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, climbing in general is like a lot of things, right? It's physical, it's mental, it's lots of stuff that you kind of have to conquer to be really good at it. And I think having that experience in that realm kind of helps going into anything, right? Because if you're going into snowboarding, like physical activity in general, like I'm already really active, I'm really snappy, I can jump around and like throw my body on the wall. Like, so you go riding, it's a similar situation. It's all about like being, not only physically strong, but also, you know, you just have that body intuition, I guess. Like you just know where your limbs are and you understand balance and where you are on the earth. And so I think that really helps. And then the mental side of it as well, like progressing and trying to be like, I want to be better and I see that I can get better, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously I think that bleeds into lots of other stuff too. Doesn't even have to be physical, but maybe something like chess, for example, or pool. It's a mental game, right? Like how does it work? And like you need to be steps ahead and all these things. It's like I think,
Hmm.
yeah, I think my past, I mean, I kind of did a lot of stuff when I was younger too, and that really helped. And it helped with, going into climbing as well. So I think, yeah, it all kind of meshes together in a way.
So, what made climbing stick for you? It sounds like I'm guessing you did well at those other sports too that you did before climbing, but you really stuck with climbing for the long haul. Yeah, what what grabbed you about climbing? I mean, I know what grabbed me about climbing, and I think
Yeah.
everyone else has their own thing, but like you stuck with it, dude.
Yeah, it was just something so different. At that point in my life, 17 years old, like I have done like all kinds of other types of sports, and mostly team sports in a way, minus like skateboarding. But climbing was just so different. It kind of took me out of my normal day to day, like suddenly I was in a gym and that was rad, but then like, the first time I went outside climbing in the bed, it was like totally opens your eyes to like what's possible and what, this whole other side of the world that you've never really seen before. Because I wouldn't say before that I wasn't very like active outdoors like as a kid. Like my family wasn't super active outdoors. We live in the mountains, like Tennessee, like the foothills there, like in Maryville or Townsend and all that kind of stuff. Like it's woods are everywhere and it's fun. And my grandparents used to live on like a 10-acre, basically farm in Townsend, and that was like my most, time spending like outdoors was there. And like they had a river down the way, and like so I spent a lot of time, running down there and climbing trees and being in the rhododendrons and all that crap. But yeah, when I started climbing, it was like, oh, there's like this activity to do out there, you know? And it kind of just, yeah, I was just like, wow, this is so cool. It's so different. And I met a lot of rad people. My old coach, Jack, in high school, he was a rad guy and he would take us out to the Obed every weekend to climb. And so it was just, yeah, it was just a totally different world. And I was like, wow, this is so like unique. It's so different,? So I was like hooked immediately, you know, for sure.
I have this I have this image of you being like on the football team and you're in high school and people are like, "That's cool, man." Actually, I'm kind of curious what position you played, but then when you started going climbing, they were like, "Jimmy, what are you doing out there in the woods? Like, why are you out there in the wood climbing on rocks? Like, why
Yeah.
aren't you
What are
in
you
here
doing?
with us?" But yeah, why would you do that?
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like fun.
I
Uh,
still hear that shit.
so it sounds like the outdoors was immediately part of your climbing experience. And I don't know. I've never been to Obed. I've never even heard of it. Sorry to say, man. I don't know. Maybe it's
You might want to edit that part
smaller
out.
place.
You're gonna lose some
Do I?
followers there.
Oh man. Okay. I no. I need. Well, educate me. What is the Obed like? What style was it, and how did just all that climbing in the southeast shape you into how you climb now?
The Obed is like an amazing sport climbing area. It's got a lot of bouldering too, but it's not as well known for bouldering. There's definitely one little area called Lily Boulders that was great, and that's where we spent a lot of our time in the beginning with Jeremy. We went there. Famous problems there like flexorciser, Chinese arithmetic, first ascent James Litz, way the fuck back in the day. I mean, that was a huge test piece back then, and kind of this mythical thing too. You look at it and like there are no fucking holds on it. It's insane. I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, dude, what? This is like doesn't even go. Like I couldn't even see the line. Yeah, but other than that, the Obed is just this beautiful gorge. It's a massive like canyon that runs in multiple directions. There's many forks of it, and there's rock literally everywhere. Um, and the sport climbing is fantastic, and people have been climbing there for a super long time. And yeah, I mean, I think it's right up there with like, the New River Gorge and the Red River Gorge. Maybe it's not as popular, maybe it's not as massive, but the rock quality is just as good. And the one nice thing about the Obed too is there's nobody really there. I mean, especially when I was growing up, it was pretty rare to go see people, out at the crag. Like you could go anywhere and not see that many people. At least not people that you didn't already know.
Now I do want to edit that out because I just want to go there because I've like avoided stuff like the red. I've heard the new is just incredible, but
Hmm.
I don't love. I don't know if I want to deal with the crowds.
Totally.
And nice to know that there's some just amazing stuff there. Yeah, I definitely know of the Boulders and Chinese arithmetic, and James Litz is probably that's probably a name that maybe the younger crowd hasn't heard of, but
Hmm.
I don't know, kind of iconic. I'm kind of mystery man too. Just like how did he do all this stuff, and how did he crimp his way up these tiny little things back in the day too? Back
Totally.
in the day,
Yeah.
it's good shout out there, man.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, one of the reasons why I asked is I got a question from Brooks Walker, who I think you know Brooks. I know Brooks
Uh,
very well.
I know him pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah, good guy. So he wanted to know how you see your role in the climbing community. And the context there is that Brooks said that you are highly regarded as like the Southern paragon of style and ethics, and that you've really stayed true to that path throughout time. And I guess when I saw this question, I thought it was really interesting too, because I'm not sure I know exactly what the Southern style is and the ethics are there that is so different. Like I kind of wanted to you always there always is this mystique around the southeast and this style and this way, but I don't know, I'd love to hear more about what that is to you and kind of how you've carried it forward.
Yeah, I mean, the Southeast is, I don't really know how exactly to describe it in like, maybe in like one word, it's quiet. And I feel like a lot of the climbers that I grew up around and looked up to were exactly that. Like they were very quiet. I wouldn't say they were secretive about areas, but they weren't like blasting about areas. They weren't spraying about what they're climbing or like what they're sending or how hard something was or etc. It was just kind of like really mellow vibes. And I guess that kind of just like sat with me, immediately because it was just this kind of like, if you know, you know, and if you don't, then it's everything's kind of this like secret in a way. So when guidebooks started coming out, I remember that was like a really big issue in the Southeast because not because they didn't want people to come climb there. It was more because they didn't want people just to have a book and just be able to just go and show up. Whereas like when I was younger, it was like, how do you know about an area? It's like you meet somebody, you hit it off with them, and then they say, hey, let me show you this area. And then they take you and you have these cool conversations, and it's like this whole ordeal, and then you get to like see this amazing area that not many people are going to, and it's kind of like everything got around like word of mouth, like, oh, he did this, that's cool. And it was all local, and it just felt like this really cool tight knit community. And when guidebooks came out, it kind of changed it a little bit. It was like suddenly everyone just had the key and they can just go. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it kind of changes that vibe of like when you come from out of town, especially you get to come into the town and you meet the people there and like get shown around and kind of like see a little part of the community as well. Um,
Yeah.
I kind of strayed off there, but like it's
No.
that was kind of like huge for me growing up, and I think that like kind of shaped me as like a climber and a person. And I spent a lot of time climbing with like Lou Rodriguez, which he owned the TVA, the old school gym there, which was like a godsend. I mean, it was just such an amazing little facility. But growing up climbing with him and him showing me around and kind of teaching me all those things and the ethics and just around how they do it in the Southeast. And I think it really just shaped me, and I'm super psyched, honestly. I'm just really proud that like I came from that place because, I think that those are good people there. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. I I grew up on the West Coast, but I think I had a similar. I think part of it is a time thing where
Hmm.
how do I put, like you just you had to you had to earn your way into these beautiful spots and show that you were going to enjoy it in this specific way. Maybe you weren't going to litter, you weren't going to bring a boombox, and you were going to I hate this idea of gatekeeping, but it's more just like, hey, this is special. Let's let's share this. Like, okay, like I want you to come and enjoy this experience with me. And I think that climbing, especially back then, climbing, I feel like used to have more danger involved, and it's like who you brought out with you had an impact where it's like, is this person going to do something dumb and we're going to have to like drag them out to the hospital? Are they
Hmm.
going to trundle something? Are they going to drop me while belaying it? And I don't know, it's something I struggle with because I think that the sport grows and it's beautiful and I love it, but I don't know how to pass those torches in the right way. And you can't stop guidebooks, like that.
Totally.
And I don't want to say there's anything wrong. So I I don't know. I that's cool to hear that ethic, and that people took you under their wing. And God, I hope we pay it forward and do something similar.
Totally. Yeah, that's all we can do at this point, just try to recreate it in some way, shape, or form, and or just, talk about it a little bit like we're doing right now. I think that also kind of puts some light on that and kind of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, back into the southeast and just thinking about you growing up there and kind of cutting your teeth out there. I know you've done quite a few boulders out there, but is there any from your youth that really stood out in your head as ones that just you had an epic on, you learned a ton on? I call the podcast test piece because I just feel like there's these moments and these climbs that somehow they maybe it's that Chinese arithmetic where you're like, what the hell is this? Like, I
Hmm.
can't do this. And then 5 years later you do, and it's like this battle that is really meaningful. I'm just kind of curious if there is any ones from your youth, regardless of the grade, right? Like,
Right.
regardless of
Totally.
the grade, that really stuck out in your head.
Oh man, there's so many. I mean, because I grew up there and because I spent so much time climbing, like over 12 years, climbing in that area. I mean, I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
I totally put you on the spot here. I'm sorry.
No,
I
that's
just
totally fine. I just think that there's so many. I'm just trying to think of like which ones are really such a massive thing for me. Breaking into like, some harder grades, maybe like 10 range was huge. Like I remember doing like Whiteface Scarecrow at Little Rock City for the first time, and that was huge for me. And all those classic V10s, honestly, like Biggie Shorty and like Instinct and all that stuff was massive because I remember when I first saw the videos of people climbing those things, like, you know, uh, old school guys like Andrew Gross and all these other homies that were doing these hard problems. And I was like, dang, man, like I want to be able to do those too. So I don't know if I remember having such an epic on many of those boulders, but like I just remember the first times that I was able to climb those. I was so inspired by them in the first place and the homies that climbed them. So then to finally do one or two of them, or eventually all of them, was like, wow, cool. Like just gets you so stoked. You're like, all right, I'm ready for the next thing. Like what's next? What's next? So
God, the climb was good there, man. God, it's good.
It's really good.
This is just
Yeah.
random that came to my head. One of the earlier climbs I remember hearing about you doing was Barn Door 2000, and
Hmm.
was that kind of one of the first times that you really left? You feel like you left your mark on that scene, or is that late? I don't even remember when that happened. It was kind of this mythical project that I had heard
Hmm.
about, and it was really cool when you did that, which is
Totally.
yeah, still kind of iconic.
I mean, the line's insane. It's so nuts. It sits right there next to the shield. Deception. I mean, in one of the more amazing spots of Little Rock City with the best rock. I mean, come on, it's like insane. And yeah, it is. It's like this mythical like beast of a project back in the day, and it looks so simple, but yet it was so subtle and it was so hard, and it kind of had everything where you kind of need to be technically sound, but then also like have that pure power, like jump and snag a three-finger crimper way the hell above your head. I mean, just a really good boulder problem. I mean, it's so effing good, and yeah, that was huge for me for sure. I was really psyched, and I didn't put too much effort into that one. Surprisingly, it went down decently quick. The year that I did it, I had tried it a couple years before that, and it had felt completely unattainable. Like, there's no way I'm going to be able to climb that. And then like I went back the next season and was like had just I guess leveled up so much. It just was like boom, did it. And then it was like, wow, that's cool. Came back down, chalked up, did it again. Back to
Wow.
back. And I was like, oh cool, like I've unlocked this thing. And that was also huge, like if I really think about it, just for the mental, like understanding how to move on that thing. It was like such a subtle boulder. And then when you do it, you're like, wow, I've unlocked this new way of climbing almost, and you're like, now I can just put it on repeat.
Oh, man, it's such a pretty boulder. It looks so obvious. Like it just looks it does look kind of easy when you
It
look at it
does.
like, oh, and there's a perfect crimp up there. Like,
Yeah.
how did that end up right there? Well, this is a theme that I see in your climbing that's always really interesting is you, you have a bit of a football player build when it comes to climbers. You're normal sized, really, is what it is. And but it's so interesting seeing you be burly, yelling your way up kind of steeper stuff. But then something like Barn Door 2000 is, I mean, yes, you need that burl, but that's actually like the exit of the boulder, right? That's the final check on that
Hmm.
intro sequence and setting up. And I think it's just this interesting thing that you have this subtle technique, and now you're taking it to Tahoe with more and more vert lines too, and just I guess the question there is, have you always leaned into technique, or did you love being super powerful, or has it kind of the pendulum swung both ways? How do you think about technique and subtlety versus, or in addition to strength, raw burly strength, which I still love, man,
Yeah.
still love.
Yeah. I mean, everyone loves like feeling strong and jumping around and all that kind of stuff, but nobody likes the feeling of getting shut down. So for when I was younger, like I just wanted to be as good as I could be at every style because I knew that that was important. Like I hated getting shut down on slabs or technical vert boulders. Like I didn't want to be known as like this like one trick pony. Like I can only just jump around. So, I think strength is extremely important, but if you can then apply it in a technical way, it goes, 1,000 times further, in my opinion. So yeah, when I was young, I was just psyched on trying to be good and work on slabs. And obviously I spent a lot of time climbing on sandstone when I was younger. So in that regard, I got really good climbing at Horseman's 40, climbing at Rocktown, like there's so many styles in the Southeast. It's so cool. There's these huge roofs with jugs. There's overhanging boulders with pinches that you can jump around. There's steep crimp lines. There's vert faces, hard slabs, like crazy cracks. Like you can kind of do it all. So I think that really helped kind of shape me as a climber, anyways, because I saw these lines that I wanted to do. I didn't see a style that I wanted to climb. I saw lines that I wanted to climb. So then I was like, if I want to climb that, I got to be able to climb that, whether it's a crack or a slab or a crimpy face. Like I was inspired by lines. So if you saw a line that was heinous crimps on a vert wall, then you're like, I got to get good at that because I want to climb this fucking rig.
Those different areas that you mentioned are so different from each other. I don't understand how I've only been to HP 40 once, and it was probably bad conditions. It was really humid, but it was so different and difficult than I think we've been at Rocktown the day before. God, I just love these places. I'm just, my hands are sweating thinking about. I've only had one extended trip, and I can see how special it is getting to grow up in an area where you have these different styles. And so,
Mm.
I always am. I'm trying to like pin you down and be like, so no, what did the South teach you? It's like, oh, it taught me a lot of different
A
things.
lot of different things. Yeah. It's amazing for that, actually. The styles there, and you kind of have the three main areas that people talk about in the Southeast, Little Rock City, Rocktown, Horsepins. The way I always saw it is Little Rock City's got its thing. It's like got these seams and these beautiful faces and these cool cracks and big, beautiful lines and a specific style of climbing, almost like a lot of crimpy stuff. There's slopey shit. There's all kinds of styles there too, but predominantly like this. And then you think of horse pins and you're like, think of like millipede and like these huge slopers and these cool bubbles, and it's like, kind of Fontainebleau-esque, like definitely a bit more subtle, a little bit more slopey. And then you have Rocktown, which is like one has its own thing, which is pretty, steep roofs and cool jugs and Wacos, and that's cool. But then it also has exactly what the other two have. Like it also has the crazy sloper boulders, and it also has the crazy crimpy, beautiful seam boulders. It's kind of like I always loved Rocktown. Rocktown is incredible because it literally has it all. It has what Horsepins has, and it has what Little Rock City has, and then it has its own thing. So it's like the big combination, like the beautiful synchronization of all three.
Shout out to Croc Block as being one of the coolest climbs of all time, in my opinion. I don't know, it's
For sure.
striking line in my opinion. Dude, I just gotta say this like little random tangent because we were talking about I made some comment about you being bigger but like normal size. I was at nationals. I don't even remember when, probably one of the last nationals you did too, 2014 or 15 or something. And I'm in a coffee shop and I see you talking to Jan Hoyer. You're just in t-shirts, you're just normal. And I just come, like, my hometown was very football oriented, like very wrestling, very like that kind of small town farming community.
Right.
And I just remember looking at you guys, and I'd seen like Yanni like yarding on this big volume, like making the wall bend. And I saw you guys at the coffee shop. I was like, this is what like the kids look like in my high school. It's just funny, like in our sport, like you are one of our bigger climbers, but like you're not 240 pounds. You're
Right. Yeah. I'm big for a
not to take
climber.
anything away for it's interesting because it's good to have these kind of role models where it's like, are you, when you look in the mirror, are you going to be like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like Ramon, I can never say his last name, that like, really
Yeah.
small Spanish
Ramon Julian.
climber.
Hmm.
Yeah, who's just, I guess I really love his climbing. He's kind of, ancient, but and then you have these other ends of the spectrum that are bigger. It's nice to know where you fit in, and know what kind of like how our sport kind of allows these different body types to excel. And I
Hmm.
remember talking to Sean Bailey, and I was asking him about you guys on a recent project in Bishop, and he said that even though you guys were different sizes, that in some ways like use similar beta. I just find that fascinating.
Hmm.
Different sizes, same beta.
Yeah, and also style plays into that too. Like I'm a big climber, so naturally I'm good at being big and jumping around and being powerful. But then you have people like Sean Bailey or Sean Rabitou. They're small, and you would think that, oh my God, they're amazing on small holds, and they are. But they're also really good at that opposite style, and that's what makes them so damn good. Is because Sean. You look at Bailey, and you're like, you're microscopic. Like you're a tiny guy. You're not like jacked or yoked or nothing like that. But that guy has like more power than I don't know. Like I don't know many other climbers ever in the history of ever that has the power that Sean has. It's
Yeah,
pretty rad to
yeah.
watch. You're like, not only are you really small and good on crimps, but you can actually huck, dude. Like you have more power than I do. Crazy.
Well, you also are known to grab. Well, maybe you're not known for it, but I know you can grab some micros and be techie. I'm so impressed with some of the stuff you've been putting up here in Tahoe. That's just, what's that like? Is it botula? Is that how you call it?
Hmm.
Like that just
Botcha, yeah.
convert. I mean, I haven't seen it, so I shouldn't say it, but just watching the video, it looks technical, looks thin, man.
Yeah,
And
technical
so
for sure.
I think it's always interesting when we talk about styles of people who are on this like elite end of the spectrum. Your weaknesses or quote unquote weaknesses aren't rock bottom. It's just kind of like what you really excel at. And
Hmm.
that was actually something I'm kind of curious about is as you progressed when you were younger. Like I remember seeing you hit the scene 2010. I don't know. I'm just remembering from my memory like 2010. It's like okay, like there's this guy Jimmy. He's doing some V12s, some V13s, which to be honest back then was impressive.
Hmm.
Now it's you know what the team kids do,
Yeah, exactly.
and and you just kept progressing. It's okay. Jimmy's doing 14s now. Oh, okay. Jimmy's flashing all these V13s, and what I'm wondering is as you moved up these notches, did you have weaknesses that showed up? Did you have to work on them? Like, just how did your progression go as you started reaching each different notch in climbing?
I think for me, like, when I was younger, especially like climbing at TBA, I noticed my weaknesses were definitely crimps and certain types of, push down moves, like, being kind of two hands like this and a foot out right of you and having to do these deep push down moves. And I used to climb with this guy, Brian Voges. I'm sure you've probably heard of Brian. Um,
Oh yeah,
Old school Southern legend. I don't even think he climbs anymore, but he was one of the strongest guys. Climbed up to 8C. I mean, insanely strong,
so strong,
so
so
strong,
strong.
so good. Um, so I actually like we climbed a lot together in TBA, and a lot of times we would set each other boulders almost. He would make up boulders that was like really his style, and it was super my anti style. And then it would be vice versa. Like I'd make up something big and powerful, and then he would have trouble on it and work on it, and he would get stronger at that style. So for me, like I really just wanted to like make sure I was like getting as good as possible at stuff that I was bad at. And that I think a lot of climbers shy away from that because it sucks. It sucks to like get on something and get shut down. But for me, it was more motivating than it was, frustrating. I mean, it was frustrating, but it was really motivating. When you start seeing progression, you get really psyched. And then when I started traveling, I started traveling to out west, climbing in Colorado, climbing in other places. Bishop, for example, I remember I first went there back in like 2010 or 11, and it was like, wow, this style is really hard for me. I'm a bigger climber. I have to worry about skin issues maybe a little bit more than a smaller climber would. I don't get as many tries on something that's really sharp, etc. So, just having to learn to adapt and to take away from those trips. When I would go back home to Tennessee, I would say, okay, cool, what was I shit at? I sucked at that crimper boulder. Like, okay, cool, I'm gonna set crimper boulders from now on. And then I just go hard, like just pounding my head against the wall, trying to get really good at that style. And eventually I did. I got better at it. And, climbing on crimps, especially these days, having lived in California for the last 7 years, like I mean, I joke about it at the Roman. I'm like, what the hell happened to me? Like, I used to be really powerful and I still am, obviously, but like, I'm like, I wonder if like crimping is like almost becoming more my style than these power boulders, and it's pretty wild to think that that's, if you would have told me that when I was younger, I'd be like, that's impossible. There's no way. I'm always going to be like this. But now it's kind of flipped around a little bit. It's kind of cool.
So I got to ask Eric Jerome sent a message about how to crimp hard as a bigger guy because he's a big boy and I guess you just kind of answered it there. It's like showing up and doing it, and
Hmm.
I am blown away by. I said this to Roman because Roman's also kind of on the larger end of climbers, and you guys are just putting up technical like slightly overhanging hard stuff all over, and
Hmm.
I just feel like it just does not fit my stereotype, and it's just cool to hear that what you're doing is just addressing those weaknesses, or not even address. It's like you wanted to climb something, so you figured out how, and I just love that being uh, pulled into success versus
Hmm.
just looking for what you can do because you have X skill.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think, like I said before, one thing that's always been with me in climbing is just being inspired by a line. So if the line requires me to be crimpy, then I'm going to try to be crimpy because I want to climb the line. And if it's a crack, then, when we first found Botula, for example, I mean, that thing was crazy. Like, it's just like, what the hell do you do up this thing? Like, it looks like it's V10, and then you start trying it, and you're like, this thing doesn't even go. But it's so intriguing, and it's such a nice, cool line that you're like, I want to try to figure this out. And you get good at it, and you figure it out, and you dial it in, and you climb it, and then here in Tahoe, we have plenty of those types of lines. Actually, there's many lines that are really technical and really kind of seam oriented or crack oriented, where maybe you can jam, you probably can't. Like, it's just depends on the style and the specific crack. And yeah, I mean, at first that stuff felt impossible. It really did. It was something that I had never really done before. I mean, I've traveled all over the world, but that style in particular is very specific to California, like from what I've noticed, at least in my own personal experiences. And yeah, that's a really cool thing. And I got repeated Carlos B15 last fall, and it's crazy seam with terrible feet, like just the worst feet in the world. Like, it's kind of glassy, and there's no chips, there's no little feet. It's like just smears, like these big. I mean, it literally feels impossible. Like, the first couple times I tried it, I was like, this thing feels like such a, it's just so stressful. It's so nerve-wracking. Like, every situation, you're like, I'm gonna just flip off this thing and land on my head. Like, and I've taken some weird falls off of that boulder, and it's because the feet are so bad. And finding those subtle ways to like stand on your feet and drop your heels, and the way that you press and the way that you come into holds, and the way that you have to be, what I say, or Keenan really said originally to me, which stuck with me, was faith based. It's like faith based feet, like where you're like, that's not going to stay, but you have to believe that that's going to stay. Otherwise, it's definitely not going to, and you just got to keep going. And that's a very specific style here. It's cool, and it was really hard when I first moved here, and I've gotten a lot better at it over the years, and that's really cool. And the most recent progression of mine, I guess, that I'm really pretty psyched about, pretty proud of.
I just gotta ask which V15 which V15 is this that Carlo did of the yeah, what's it
Equin-
called?
Equanimity.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I'll try to get a link for that. I don't know if he's posted a video of that yet, but
I think he
I'll get it out
did.
there.
I don't know if he actually posted it or not, but I've definitely seen it.
He has so much footage that he's just slowly releasing, and it's all so good.
Yep.
I'm curious if so uh, now we're getting into this developing world, which I know is really a passion of yours, and you're in here in California, just opening up new things every freaking week. And a lot of these are boulders, but we're talking about being struck by lines. And I know you've done some sport climbing, but are you interested? Like, how do you decide what to look for each day? And you put up this sport climb here called Book of the Dead, which I thought looks gorgeous, man. And I'm just wondering, are you a boulderer? Are you ever thinking about tying in more, or even doing trad climbs? Because I was thinking of Carlo and Magic Line and stuff like that.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm psyched on sport climbing too. I just, here in Tahoe, there is a lot of rope climbing, but the rope climbing in general typically isn't like the most rad. It's not steep, it's not overhanging, it's definitely kind of fits that style we were just talking about. It's really technical, it's really crack oriented or whatever. And I think a lot of those lines are amazing. Don't get me wrong. I love, things like Empath or Weekend at Bernie's or, the Zebra Wall in general. I mean, the rock is just insane. So yeah, I mean, I'm psyched on it. And again, like I've said before, I'm inspired by lines. So if the line is really rad and it is calling to me, then I, of course, am going to put a rope on. And, that happened with Book of the Dead when I first found that boulder, stumbled across it, and the first thing I saw was what would end up being Ghost Chant, which is like insane boulder, insane, really good, great rock, cool movement, and just the crazy dramatic area. But initially, I came around the corner and I saw what could be Book of the Dead, what ended up being Book of the Dead, and I was like, that looks like it goes. That's crazy. And then there's another line to the right of that, this huge highball, till death do us part, that ended up, I did that I think last season. And they're just incredible lines. They're insane. And Book of the Dead in particular was really cool. You just get on top of the boulder, which is sketchy as hell, and put a bolt in, drop in, and check out all the holds, and realize quickly that it went. and bolted it up. And I was like, this is so sick. It's such a cool style, kind of like Bishop patina, seam technical finish at the top. That's pretty hard. I don't know. It's really good. And yeah, I love the sport climbing when it turns out like that. It's like a sport boulder kind of situation. So it's like takes the best of both worlds, in my opinion. It's not just like a big sport climbing wall with like a bunch of lines on it. It's like it's this big boulder, which what I'm drawn to, with one line up it, where you're like, wow, that's striking. And
Mm.
yeah, that's what that ended up being. I mean, it's such a good line. I don't even know if it's been repeated. I don't know if anybody's gone to try it. I mean, I know Roman tried it a little bit, and Fitzgerald got on it one day, and I know he's really psyched. So it'd be cool to see more people on it. I don't know. Maybe someone else has repeated it. Maybe somebody will comment on this podcast and say, "Yeah, flash the pants off that thing."
Rowan said I was all excited about it because it's more in a grade range that is, maybe obtainable for me. And I was like, oh, Roman, like, how is it? He's like, oh, it's fucking nails, dude. He's like, it's fucking nails. I was like, damn
Well,
it.
it's like a boulder basically. So and it's short sport climb, so the boulders have to be pretty hard. I
Yeah,
think I
yeah.
think it's like a big V10 or V11 with a decent rest, and then a fit outro like V9 or V10. So
Mm, mm.
yeah,
So, so you're just talking about trying this thing of Carlos or even the botula and just how like the feet aren't there and it feels impossible. And this is something that I'm always interested to hear about when you're doing developing is when to know that something is, or how do you make that leap and understand when something is possible or that you're not just banging your head because maybe it's just because I don't understand, but I imagine that the difference between V20 and V17 and V16 are maybe not clear. I know that when I walk up to super hard problems, I don't always know. Sometimes it looks easy, sometimes it looks impossible. And just how do you deal with the mental side of uh, conquering the impossible?
I think it's just you have to have this deep down belief that it really goes. It's like almost tricking your brain into thinking like that it actually goes, even though maybe it doesn't. At least to a point until you get to like 40th session or some crap, and you still haven't done four of the moves. Like then you're like, okay, that just doesn't go. But I mean, for myself, like, does it go or does it go for me? That's a big question too. Like, there's so many strong climbers out there these days that view the rock differently or climb differently or different size or different strengths and all these things. So, I can look at something and say, I think this goes, but I don't know if it goes for me. Like, maybe it does, but damn, I'd have to put so much work in, and it's really cuspy. Um, and figuring out those types of things is really hard to do on your own. Like trying boulders with homies in strong climbers, for example, especially in recent years. We've had Fitzgerald up here, Carlo, Roman. I mean, Pobbs comes up, Keenan, like all these guys come up and can kind of test these projects out. And for like you said before, like for one person it could feel impossible, but yet for the next person maybe it doesn't feel so crazy. So it's always cool to kind of like climb on stuff with different people with different styles, like because you could say, oh, this doesn't go for me, but then Keenan walks up and does some crazy contortionist heel hook thing that I'll never be able to do, and he just shits on the beep, and you're like, what the hell just happened? Like, that's so sick. Like, I want to get better at that, and then I've been here and fucking stretching for 5 hours straight, still doesn't work. Like,
Or it sounds like you have Fitzgerald just grab a hold that's not there and then do a one arm pull up on it because
totally,
his fingers are I don't understand what he's doing. I just want to know how to make my fingers like that because it must just completely change what the world looks like. And he does seem to have a little bit of a different style than you.
for
And
sure.
so so that's so cool to man, what an amazing crew to be tackling new
Mm-hmm.
hard boulders. That's just special, man. I'm psyched for you guys. And
100%.
it makes me wonder. You've been around for decades. You've climbed with the best climbers in the world. You are one of the best climbers in the world. Those people we just talked about tackle each boulder differently, but what do you think is the thing that makes them all so great? Like, what is the thread between them? Because clearly it's not just, oh, well, you have to have David Fitzgerald's finger strength because only David has that, and
Mm-hmm.
and Keenan has something different. Like, what's this? consistent theme that you've seen across climbing, geez, with everyone?
Yeah, I mean, I think, every climber has their style, right? Every climber has like their way of going about climbing and how they view the boulders, how they view the lines, and all those types of things, and style and strengths and all that kind of stuff matters 100%. Like, but one thing that I think really sets the best climbers apart is like their mental game. Like, they believe like deep down that they can do something. Like, there's no doubt in their mind, and they are willing to put in that effort, and they're willing to like sit there day in and day out to try to do something hard. Like, and that right there, like having the ability to flip the switch and just say like in their own head and to believe it thoroughly that they're going to climb the boulder, maybe not that day, but they know that they can do it, and to be able to then like execute that and to say and to like try every day and to really have that belief when they pull on the wall with no doubt in their mind that they can do it. I mean, that right there is I think one of the biggest things that set, good climbers and great climbers apart. Like, I know so many climbers out there that are good climbers and they're really strong, right? They're like V15 strong even, but they don't typically put things together. They have trouble on that end. And what's consistent across the board when you think about all the best climbers in the world is that they can pull the trigger and get stuff done. And that's hard. It's a really hard part of our sport. And maybe we don't talk about it a lot, but everyone says, how do I attain these grades? I need to get stronger. It's like, no, yeah, you want to get stronger, but you also want to get mentally stronger. Like, so maybe putting yourself in those positions a little bit more often, like time and experience is huge in that regard. And that's what these guys have. They have time and experience, and they've been through the process. They've been through the ringer, and maybe not all of them were really good at it in the beginning, but they became better at it through some way, shape, and form. I don't know. Like for me, maybe I feel like I've always been pretty good at executing, and I don't know why. Maybe just my personal mental game is decent, and like I just really believe, even maybe when I shouldn't. uh, and so, yeah, I don't know. Everybody's different, but that part I think is very important and what sets those guys apart, 100%.
That's really cool. Yeah. Is there any projects that you have had in the past where you started wavering on that belief, where you had to kind of bust through, or maybe you didn't bust through? Like, is there any ones that stick out in your head that really pushed you to your absolute limit and then you triumphed over?
Um, yeah, I mean, some of the hardest things I've climbed probably all had some bit of that for sure, where you're like, many, many days in and don't know if you can do it. And it starts to get stressful. It starts to get annoying. It starts to get frustrating. And you just want to like quit and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely probably had that. One thing that maybe comes to mind is like living large. That was definitely one of those where I knew I could do it. I think I always knew I could climb it, but I didn't know if I was going to be able to climb it that trip, or like if I was going to keep falling off the top and like freaking wreck my back, like, cause I fell up there like at least 4 times and that shit hurts.
Wow. It's a big fucking fall.
Yeah, I had some big falls. I had to stop trying it mid trip for about like almost 2 weeks because my back was hurting so bad. And I was like, I can't take that fall anymore.
Dude, I was wondering if you're going to say live in large. I was in Rocklands when you did it, and I remember like time was running out and
Hmm.
like conditions were whack. I remember you like getting up super early. I think I saw you not long after you did it, and you were just like grinning, dude.
Oh yeah.
You were floating. You were psyched.
Yeah, that boulder was so amazing to climb. I mean, I think it ruined me first of all in a lot of different ways because it was such an epic in that regard. Like I had to put so much effort into that boulder, and that year it was really pretty warm and really sunny every day. There were no clouds, and if live in large well, it sits in the sun all day. So, and it's a big hike, and yeah, I mean, I was waking up at 4:30 in the morning, like getting some food, and then driving over there, hiking the 45 minutes up, getting on the rope with a headlamp to warm up, and then the sun would come up with just enough light to try it, and I would have an hour to give it two good tries. maybe three tops. Um, and that was it. And I would do that, and it kind of wrecks your skin too. It's pretty sharp in some ways. There's these crystals. So then I would give it two tries, be done, hike back down, be at the, at the farm stall when everyone's like basically waking up, because it's always party vibes in Rocklands. And I had already had a day, and then the whole rest of the day is a rest day. The whole next day is a rest day for skin, and then I would do it again. And that was my entire trip basically. I didn't climb much on anything else. So that was like a lot of stress. And then it came down to the last freaking day, dude. I don't even know. The last day, I had to like stay with another homie because our Airbnb or our housing was gone. So I stayed with another guy, slept on the floor, woke up, same thing, early as heck. Did it first try. Nale hiked up that day, which is the only day that he came up. Hiked up with a Mondo, super rad. Did it first try, came back down. Had the Live in Large milkshake, which is where it came from. uh Charity made it for me with like double amarula and like some bucket alcohol in it. It was nuts. And then like bag of Cape cookies and got in the car, drove straight to the airport. Like almost missed our flight. Pretty
Dude, that
wicked.
is living large. I like that. That's dude, it's living up to its name.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Ah, okay. I'm
It's an
I'm glad. What
experience.
a line too. Yeah, beautiful one to have that experience on.
Yeah.
So execution, man. It's funny because I want to get more into developing and doing these amazing lines around here, but I I was thinking about this almost on the other end of the spectrum. Like Jimmy, you used to be kind of thought of as the world's greatest flasher. Like in some ways, that was I don't know, like that was kind of like your thing for a minute there, and I it almost kind of hit at this time where I just feel like flashing was almost like a newer thing to be done. Like it wasn't talked about. And yeah, that Rocklands trip that you had, I don't know which season it was before that, where you flashed a lot of things. And so Brooks again wanted to know about your strategy and just how you would flash these climbs. And because he said that you would like study problems relentlessly before trying them. And he said it was like intense to even like be witnessing this project or this process for you to study them and then you'd execute.
Right.
And just is that world behind you of flashing, and just maybe you can take us back to what your mentality was and what your approach is to flashing hard problems.
Yeah, I think when I was younger I was just obsessed. Like I mean I'm still obsessed with climbing, but I was like obsessed with climbing. And like and I just wanted to see if I could flash these boulders. I would like watch them, and like especially like in Rocklands, if you're like watching all these videos and you're getting psyched, and you're like, man, I wonder if I could flash that. Like I wonder if I can flash that. And I started to set simulators at the gym. I started, I was like watching the videos, like obviously a decent amount because I'm just so psyched to be going there. And so you really see all the subtleties, and you focus. And I was very driven and focused on like the subtleties of the movement, and just like watching and just kind of trying to interpret that in a way, and then building a simulator, trying to make it harder than what I think the actual boulder would be, so that like if I can at least do this simulator, then I can flash something easier than this simulator. So if the boulder was a V13, I was trying to make them like V14 or maybe even harder in our gym. So yeah, I would just obsess, and I would just climb on those things. And eventually, like by the time I got to the boulder, it felt like I'd already climbed it. You know what I mean? And then you get to the boulder and you realize, oh man, the holds are better than the simulator. The moves aren't as far apart, maybe. Like I can do this thing, you know? And just having that belief, like I've said before, and just going for it. And yeah, it ended up working out like a lot of times, which was really cool.
Yeah, any further things for when you're like sitting there getting ready to pull on and execute? Are you like visualizing, oh, like if I don't get that hold just right, or maybe you're like really seeing in your head like where that tick mark is, just because you only get one shot. Like, did you
Yeah.
ever build up like a consistent framework, like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, before each time?
Yeah, I mean, just focusing on the subtleties and trying to figure out making sure like tick marks, or if I need to make sure I need to go here. Like you kind of like can size up moves when you're below it, and just kind of really focusing on trying to like simulate it in your head, like as if you're on the wall. Like, okay, this is how I'd kind of be here, and if I get this wrong, I think I'd be able to like match here, and you know, staying really tight and just being trying to feel like you just have it dialed already. And before a lot of times before it's like you're kind of nervous, like you're kind of like got the jitters, you're a little bit anxious, and it's like a good excitement anxious, and I always just really liked having it was fun to try to flash stuff. And I think that was huge too. It wasn't like always really stressful, like where I was like, I really want to flash this thing, like I want to, and it's really important. I'd be like, it would be so cool and it's so fun and I'm psyched and I'm just gonna have a good time. I'm anxious because I know I can't do it. Like, is it gonna happen? I don't know. Like, it's a very small percentage of, that I'm actually gonna flash this thing right now. But maybe I'm gonna do it. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. I'm psyched, a little bit of jittery, and sometimes it works out. And when it didn't, it was cool too because then I was like, I've been building this thing up for a while, and now I didn't flash it, and now I just get to climb on it. Now I get to just have fun on the boulder, like, and figure out the moves and like, maybe even do it second try or third try, or maybe it takes you a whole nother day. You never know. But yeah, it's just it was always a fun process.
It is a good way to just get to climb more cool boulders. Like one of the side things about flashing is just, I don't know, like you just want to climb. Like you only, how long are you going to be in Rocklands for? Oh, it's a month. Yeah, but there's a lot of blocks you want to do, and
For sure.
uh,
Yeah.
I, okay. Last question on this, just because it's something I always find interesting, is how did you decide on the beta? Sometimes there's climbs that are really straightforward, and sometimes there's climbs that aren't.
Hmm.
And did you ever adjust on the fly? I mean, I'm sure you did. Just, I guess, do you look at people who are similar shape to you and then just be like, okay, I'm okay with that beta? Or is it something that you really assess when you're there and say, no, it's going to be this foot for me or this keel hook?
Yeah, I think before you go, obviously all you have is the information on the computer, like watching other people climb on it. So, yeah, a lot of times I think I would watch videos of people that were my size, that would kind of seem like they maybe fit my style and all those types of things. So you kind of watch a lot of the different videos, maybe even most of them out there, and you kind of pick from all of them, and you kind of know, hey, okay, this guy's more my size, this guy fits my style. He climbs like me. He likes crimps, etc. It's kind of like you can kind of like figure that out, and then you have all the other backlog information too of all the other homies that have climbed it, and you watch those too. And if you're obsessed enough, like I am, and you have a good memory too, like where you remember beta like a lot and really easily, then you get to the boulder and you remember all these other guys too. So then you can say, oh man, but that guy, the guy that I thought I would maybe climb like, this looks weird to me. I don't know. So then you remember all the other betas too. And then so you can like make some subtle adjustments and say, okay, maybe I'd maybe do it more like this because that makes more sense to me right now. And then you get on the wall and who knows, you might get on the wall and then get there and go, nope, actually, yeah, it's like that. Because like with really basic boulders, you can really see the beta, you can feel what it's like without even climbing on it. Like, I know it's going to be like this, like sky, for example, jump to the hold, foot there, there's not many options, right? But with some, there may be a little bit more subtle than that, where it seems like it could be straightforward and then you get on the wall and it's not. So I think being ready for those moments too, like when you get on the wall and being able to adapt, is a huge part of it as well. I wouldn't say that it happened to me very often because I think flashing, especially a V13 boulder problem, there's not much wiggle room unless you're like a V17 climber or a V16 climber, you know what I mean? Then you're going to have wiggle room. Like you can go, "Oh crap, this is not right." And like adjust your whole body, move your foot or somewhere else, come in and still have the energy to execute the rest of it. Like that's hard. Like so flashing was cool because it was at that point in my climbing, I wouldn't say that it was like limit, but it had to be perfect. Like I don't think I was going to be messing around very often and then still be able to flash the boulder, at least at that grade. So it just felt like this one in a million chance. You're just like hucking the basketball down the court with your eyes closed, just like I'm gonna make it. you know?
It was so cool when you dropped that video, and seeing you flash Sky was a big deal at the time. And I actually, Sky is straightforward, but like you get on that next move and then it's way steeper than I felt like it felt
Yeah,
steeper than it looked. And all of a sudden that hold, it's not above you, it's almost like behind you.
right.
Dude, yeah, good stuff. I totally blanked on you as just an amazing flasher. Actually, I just remembered one of the first times I saw you out in the wild, or talked to you was in Leavenworth, and I had just done Teacup, which was kind of one of the earlier things that you flashed that was really hard. I just remember like coming down. It was like a night session because it was hot as hell, and I was all psyched. And then I bump into him, like, damn it, man, this guy just he flashed my project. Like that was like, but good times.
Yeah.
That was it's cool to hear about just that whole era and being into that. And now you're on kind of the other end of the spectrum and spending all these times on these projects that are seriously difficult on the edge of possible. And I wonder, like, what makes a good line to you when you're tromping around out there in the forest? Like, why do certain ones grab you and others don't? Like, what makes a line really attractive to you?
I mean, I like big lines for sure. The bigger the better. I mean, as long as it's not 70 foot or some crazy shit. But like, I like big lines. I like big, pure lines. I like things that are pretty singular. Um, I look for dramatic shapes in dramatic places. Like things like that really inspire me. Stylistically, I wouldn't say I have a preference really. It's more really about the line. Like, so if it's just a beautiful striking face or a big overhanging prow or, a big steep wall, I don't know. Just something that really pops out is something that really gets me going is like it's a huge boulder. It's sitting in the middle of nowhere. Like maybe it's sitting perched on top of like a cliff or maybe it's just tucked deep in the Tahoe forest with like all these huge trees with the woolly green, moss all over them, and you just kind of get the vibe of being there. It's like some boulders are really special in that regard. So if I'm gonna find like my ultimate boulder, it's gonna be something like that. It's like sitting somewhere fucking cool in a rad place. There's nobody there. It's dramatic. It's cool. It's shapely. Like just all kinds of things that go into it. But it's really more of an aesthetic than it is about a style or a specific. If it's crimpy or pinchy or compressiony or whatever.
So, what about these boulders? It's actually a question that Jamie Emerson had. What is it that's so appealing to you to go deep, man? Like to go out there, have adventures, and climb hard boulders in places that aren't right off the road. And the one that comes to mind is the Revenant, right? Which, by the way, Eric Jerome came on here and he argued that may be one of the best boulders in America, at least. And would love to hear what you think of that. But what draws you to have these wild adventures out deep and then still climb things that are really difficult, way off the beaten path?
I like you said, the adventure. Like I love that part of climbing, and I wouldn't even know if you can say that that's a part of climbing particularly. It's a part of being, and being out in the middle of nowhere is something that just really is cool to me, and I love that. And combining that with the sport that I love is kind of like the perfect scenario. It's like you get to go out in the middle of nowhere with your friends and develop some amazing climbing, and it's unknown and there's no one there, and maybe there's really good lines, maybe there's not, we don't know, we have to go hike it, we have to put in all this effort. And that part of it, that the adventure part of it, is just one of my favorite bits. I mean, being somewhere that maybe people have been before, but maybe not any climber has been there before. Seeing a whole new area, a whole new boulder field, or a whole new line, like that stuff inspires me. And I've been definitely more trending in that direction over the past decade of just being out there and doing cool lines in dramatic places. And it is a lot of work. It's not easy a lot of times. It's uncomfortable. It's hikes are far. You have to deal with grizzly bears or some shit if you're in the winds, like, which that's where the Revenant is. Obviously, I think people know that reference. And yeah, I mean, I think it's just just that unknown factor and being somewhere that no one else has maybe been before, cleaning a line that no one's ever seen before, or developing an area, an entire zone that no one's ever seen before. That is a very cool thing to me. And I know that that's weird and odd and different. Like there's not many climbers out there that are like that. And that's cool. That's totally fine. It's just, this is me. This is, Jamie Emerson. He's huge into that. Nathaniel Davidson, Davin, my homie Davin, who's lived, born and raised in the winds basically, and who I do a lot of my massive adventures with because he's just that other crazy motherfucker out there that just wants to do that stuff. And it's, I just like it a lot. It's super fun for me, and I know climbing can go in all kinds of different directions, and you can focus on climbing the hardest things in the world in massive known areas, and sit yourself underneath a roof for forever to climb like a V17, and that is awesome. That's super inspiring. Is not necessarily me anymore. Like I think I would like to do something that hard, but what really fulfills me as a climber is developing and hiking and finding new stuff, whether it's in Tahoe or it's like in Wyoming, or we have a trip to go to Peru this year, in the summer. That's going to be really fun and very similar, developing new lines in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, it's like an alpinist climbing, like bouldering thing, and it hasn't been done very often. I don't think. I mean, obviously there are people that have climbed deep in the mountains, but I think those people would agree it's a very special thing, but it takes a very special person.
I was with you until you said Grizzlies. I I was all down.
Dude, so many
It
people say the same thing, and I don't blame you.
it's because I watched that movie. Was it like Grizzly Man or something like a long time ago, and
Uh-huh.
just it didn't end so well. I don't want to spoil it, but it had an interesting ending. Yeah, I think this is what's cool about talking to guys like you is that you start leaving your own mark on the sport because you have this vision. And I talked to Keenan. Keenan likes some of these boulder climbs. I'm not saying I don't know if Keenan, maybe as he gets older, maybe he will go out into the deep with you. But I think of Keenan as just pushing this kind of mental, physical limit. And then I even think in history about guys like Fred Nicole, who kind of had this vision of really hard climbing, kind of low off the deck, like really just, I don't know. It was him. It was a style. And I'm sure he's done other amazing things too. But yeah, you're going to the FAs that you do there will be a certain kind of person that is drawn to them. One who is not afraid of grizzlies and one who wants to try their hardest when they're really out there in the wild. And is it hard for you to access try hard when you're 15 miles in the backcountry? Maybe you're hungry and cold, like
Mhm.
that epic style. Like, do you ever does it ever get to be too much for you, or is that exactly what you're looking for?
It's kind of exactly what I'm looking for. And not to say that it doesn't get hard sometimes, not to say that you're not tired or you're not scared, or like, it doesn't start to like fatigue you, because it does. Like 7 days in the middle of nowhere, in grizzly country especially, like it just sucks. It's stressful. It's not easy. But there's this special side of it that kind of just like inspires me, where you get underneath the boulder, for example, and you just are instantly rejuvenated. Like I feel so motivated by this line, by this place. Like the Revenant in particular is insane. I mean, it sits in this crazy dramatic area, and every time you come off the wall, you can't not look around and be like, wow, like this is just such an amazing location. Like the fact that we're even here is something so special. And so that kind of just rejuvenates you, and you're there with like-minded people that are feeling the exact same way, you know. And it's a special bond, I think, that really kind of like brings a bunch of homies together and really kind of puts you in this different realm almost of climbing, not so focused on success or not, success. It's like it's focused more like on the actual fact that you're in this remote area together, and it's hard, and you're working together, and everybody's a team. And making sure everyone's safe because it can be dangerous and like all this kinds of stuff. It kind of really all ties it all in for me and gives me that I think that energy that I need to want to climb well and to be inspired. Not only by the climbing or the climb specifically, but just being there and doing what we're doing. Like I'm like, "Fuck, that's cool." I hear about people doing that kind of stuff. I'm like, hell yeah, dude. I know exactly how you feel, and like I'm really inspired by that, and I appreciate your effort. I'm like, I know that's hard, and that's cool. Like I'm proud of you guys.
Yeah, I want to tie this back into what you were talking about earlier, where you kind of go into a place, there's not a lot of people there, and oftentimes you're taken there by someone who it's kind of, hey, like, I'm going to show you something. Like, this is cool. And then this is this is what I love about climbing, and why sometimes I even like doing sport climbing or deep water soloing is it's just the longer you are kind of in a place and not hearing people talk about baseball or their job, like the deeper you sink into your surroundings and you just kind of like subtly become more integrated and aware of every sound. And that's where, like, when I'm thinking about you guys in that beautiful position of that boulder too, and just feeling connected and
Mhm.
out there, right? Like,
Yeah.
3 days in and you're like, no, we're living this. Like, this is
Oh yeah.
us. And
Yeah.
fuck yeah,
Your
that's fucking
everyday
cool, man.
your everyday life is different, and you're fully disconnected from the world. Like you're making
Yeah.
fires every night. You're making food. You're focused on making sure everybody's safe, and you have a routine. Like everyone wakes up around the same time. We do our breakfast and like hang out, and then we scurry off into the boulders, clean some lines, build some landings. Like take a siesta in the middle of the day, take a nap in the sun, like because you're exhausted, eat some snack. I mean, it's just the whole experience, and there's just nothing else going on. You can really kind of be sat down with yourself and your thoughts, and I feel like that's a really cool thing, and it doesn't happen like all that often in climbing. Like obviously these areas are really big these days, and there's a lot of people, and that's cool too. It's totally fine. I like that as well. I mean, I don't mind going to Bishop sometimes when it can be crowded. You see a bunch of homies you don't know, maybe
Yeah.
never met, or you haven't seen in forever. So that's cool too. So
So when's the guidebook coming out? When's Wind River guidebook coming out?
dude, I would love to see that. That'd be crazy. No one would go.
Hike for, yeah, yeah, sells 3 copies. I gotta ask, I remember hearing, I think maybe Jamie told me the name, how the name came to be for the boulder, but it's a damn good name. And I want to know how you come up with names for all these boulders, because you are good at naming, dude. And I don't give that compliment to, because I think it's a cool part of bouldering, like
Hmm.
making it somehow, it's part of it. You you've climbed this climb and it becomes part of an area. So sometimes there's like a
Theme.
relevance to the area it's in. Yeah,
Hmm.
I know it sounds dumb, but it's like this thing that I think boulders become more beautiful when you chalk them up. Like there's something that kind of comes
For
to
sure.
life a little bit. And
Hmm.
giving it a name gives it some lore. And so I'm curious. Maybe you could tell the quick story of how the Revenant name came about, and then maybe if you have any thoughts on, you've probably done a lot more naming than most, so maybe you have some framework around it.
Yeah, I think it's specific to each area or to each thing, right? The Revenant, for example, was uh, kind of based around like the Revenant, the movie with the heinous grizzly attack, and I had just kind of watched that movie not crazy long before we were out there for the first trip, and you're in grizzly country. It's heads up all the time, like making sure you're making noises when you're hiking through different areas in the trees, or there's not really a trail. You're in the middle of nowhere. It's all that kind of stuff, and when you go into the backcountry in the Wind River Range, that is a massive conversation. That is something that is so on your brain the entire time. Like going to bed at night, like making sure there's no food or toothpaste or wrappers in your tent. Like it's dangerous. I think one we had one. I think it was maybe the first year we went out there. We stayed the whole time. We stayed through a big snowstorm, which was crazy. And Dobbin,
Wow, must have been pretty.
it was gnarly. It was gnarly. That snowstorm was really scary. We thought we could have gotten fully screwed. We almost bailed out because we were like, it could be really bad. But it ended up being not too crazy. There's only like 4 inches or something of snow, so and it melted pretty fast. But on the last night, we all went to bed, waking up the next day to leave, and Dobbin had what he thought was a grizzly bear that sniffed up on his tent in the middle of camp. And he was just laying there, bear spray on the side, like light right here, just ready. And I think the thing just came up, sniffed up underneath his tent, fly a little bit, and then just kept walking. Um, but that just right there was like one of those moments where you're like, this shit's real, you know, like we don't always see grizzly bears out there. We might see signs of them, but we don't see them very often. But it doesn't mean that they're not there. And so that that situation was like, you know, made the hair stand up on your arms. Like when he told me the next day, I was like, I'm so glad we're leaving today, like because that just sketched me out. And you know, it's part of it. And so we went back the next year, and I ended up climbing the Revenant. And so, you know, that was a big part of the story of why I named it that. And the season before that as well, it had like ripped my finger off, like fully ripped my whole pad off. Like one of the worst flappers I ever had. I couldn't climb even with tape for like almost a month. I was like, I think I might need to go to the hospital and like deal with this. So kind of those two things definitely kind of came into naming that boulder. But in general, I think it's just more every line that I'm inspired by. It's that's how the names come about. It's like there's inspiration there, and there's a meaning to the boulder, and it means something a lot, you know, to me. And I think naming problems is important, and also just important for me because I just take little bits of like what's happening around me and my surroundings in my within my experience with that boulder, you know. So depending on a revenant, obviously, there you go. And then there's tons of other situations where maybe, yeah, it's connected to the theme of the boulder, theme of the area, or if it's a whole new area, a whole new boulder, whole new place, like it could be connected to the entirety of like where we are, you know, like whether it's the mountain range or specific situations or stories that you've heard of that area, or maybe something specific that happened to you within that experience, like trying to do that first ascent. I mean, the list is endless, right? But I've never been a big fan of like you know, Roman's got a huge list on his phone of like 800 names, you know, and like I've tried doing that, but then even when I have a list of 100 names on my phone, I do a boulder, I'm never like, oh yeah, that one, it goes with that, you know, and that's part of it. Like I want something to kind of be like it's tied into the experience, you know, so it's hard to pick from a list, you know, you kind of have to just take from the experience. And I have trouble naming things all the time. I mean, it seems like I name shit all the time. I do, but I also forget to name stuff, like, or I don't give names to things that are amazing. Like, you know, it happens. You know, when you're climbing a bunch and developing new lines, sometimes you forget to slap names on things. You're like, oh, I'll think about it later. And then you're like, oh, fuck, I forgot. What'd you call that? And I'm like, I don't remember. I don't think I named it.
Well, I love that it comes out of the whole, like, almost, I don't want to say the boulder names itself, but like when it's that inspiring and that cool, that's like part of the whole thing. It just kind of shows itself. And yeah, like I said, I don't know why I'm a total geek for names, but I don't know. I do appreciate a good name. So thanks for putting the effort in.
For sure.
Uh, okay. The Revenant, Sweet Boulder. I told you Eric called it what he thought was one of the coolest boulders, and he has his whole star system and everything. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's, you know, a little
Hmm.
passion project of his.
For sure.
And it just, so one of his questions was, is what do you think is the best boulder in the world? And you know, I know I'm kind of hitting you out of nowhere on this, and I kind of think that's a random question to like name one boulder because maybe it hasn't been found yet. But
Hmm.
you know, maybe if anything comes to mind, just would love to hear, yeah, what you think is really cool out there.
I mean, since we're on that subject, I think the Revenant is one of the most amazing lines in the world, for sure. I don't know if it is the most amazing line in the world. Like, there's a lot of things that go into that, you know. But if I were to think about what is the best thing in the world, it would be something like the Revenant, you know, something with a very rad, good, obvious start. It's big, but not crazy big. You know, tall, beautiful, great rock quality, good landing, in a dramatic place. Like that right there is like all the things that I'm looking for to find the best thing in the world, and that one definitely hits that mark. You know, there's obviously things like Living Large that are out there, and that's also incredible. There's many lines in Switzerland that we could name all day that are so freaking good and could be some of the best lines in the world. I mean, everyone's different, right? Everyone has their own vision of like what is the best, right? So it's kind of hard to be like overall in the entirety of the planet, like everyone agrees that this is the best thing in the world because we're never going to get to that, like we could argue it all freaking day. I've had conversations with Jerome, like that are not, we can't land on like what is the best one in the world or what even is should be in the top 100 because we all have our different kind of biases around it and our different visions of what should be what we think is the best in the world. Because a lot of people could argue that if it's so tall, how can it be the best in the world? It's so freaking tall, it's dangerous. Like that can't be the best thing in the world. That's too, but for me, I'm like, yeah, but that's one of the best parts about climbing. I like being scared. I like doing big boulders. I like getting up there and testing myself. So it depends on who you ask. I mean, who knows? Revenant's pretty good though.
It's actually exactly why I asked the question, because I don't want it to be the same for everyone. I like hearing what is it that makes different people tick, and this is one of the things that's interesting talking to you about why you develop and what you develop is that whole adventure aspect is crucial for you and for a lot of people. I mean, it's like, oh, dude, I don't want to hike. Like
Hmm.
I just, I'm not saying I don't, but I mean, that's definitely like a common thing. It's like, oh, is it roadside? Like, and and you will say, I will say that boulders often do get more popular because they're right there.
Hmm.
But then like I was thinking about, is it Heaven's Gate? Is that a climb that you put up above Bishop?
Hmm.
And like, you know, I would argue that that approach of getting to that area is like amazing in itself. And so there's an element of like when you have to, drive far and then hike. God, that's a beautiful area. Just so freaking beautiful, that lake up there. And
Totally.
to me, that can like add something really special. And so yeah, I want to hear, and you did. I like hearing. No, this is special to me because it's tall, because it pushes that mental side. But then someone like Keenan or maybe Alex Honnold might be like, oh, dude, you think that's pushing the mental game? That's nothing. Like,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. At least in the bouldering realm.
yeah.
This is pushing the limit, or whatever. But yeah.
You actually, I don't always think of you as being super, climbing like the craziest, tallest lines. And I love hearing that they are attractive to you. And I guess maybe I'm just comparing you to, Alex Holland. But then I saw this epic you had with that line in Switzerland. I know you hurt your ankle and then you went back and did it the next year. And just,
Hmm.
I don't want to, as we were talking before, like, I'm just not a fan of diving into injuries because they happen to everyone and it's part
Right.
of it. But I was curious about more that kind of mental process and like being like, oh, this one hurt me, but I'm going back and I'm showing it like, but I still want it. Like it was,
Hmm.
that kind of thing.
Totally. Yeah, I mean that line in particular is incredible, and it kind of was super inspiring to me from the first day I saw it. So yeah, it got me fucked up my ankle pretty bad, but yeah, I had to do it. I had to go back and do it. The line is so inspiring, and I had to avenge the ankle and kind of just go get it done. Because I got hurt, but also just because the line's so good. I mean, it's something that I just wanted to do it so bad, and so yeah, yeah, you got to go back and do those. You got to go back and do those, and yeah, accidents happen. It's like just is what it is. Everyone gets hurt, like you said. So I wouldn't climb anything if I, was, oh man, I got injured doing that. I'm not going to go back. Or I got injured doing that style, like crimping or whatever. I'm not going to crimp anymore. Like you would never get anything done. You would never go back and send anything. So yeah.
So you didn't have any like big mental block when you get up to that same move. Like, I don't know. I guess I, yeah, just dealing with those moments where like, oh, I did pop a pulley like 2 years ago and like this crimp is kind of heinous or whatever. Like, do you not, are you just driven by your inspiration or do you ever have these moments where you're really like scared?
No, with that one, I was definitely scared. Going back, I probably had I think I probably put 4 sessions in at the beginning and didn't even, I mean, I couldn't try the move. I was so scared of the move. Like,
Wow.
I had a bunch of pads and I was making sure I was safe and I was landing fine. Like, my ankle was still giving me a little bit of trouble at that time. So yeah, I mean, just because I went back and did it doesn't mean that there wasn't mental battles to like overcome. And in that situation, there definitely was. It was stressful. It was like a lot, and I was really wanting to do it, but I didn't want to get hurt again, and I was really hesitant and trying to play it smart and make sure that I wasn't going to get hurt because it is one of those moves that you could definitely get hurt on. It's if your feet come off, it's pretty glassy, and that's what happened is I kind of just slipped. And it sent me rotating, and it can totally happen on that move. And so I was nervous of that, and so I had to, I had to spend some time like kind of building up the belief and the courage, and slowly going for the move and taking controlled falls, and slowly trying to actually grab the hold, and then doing it, and then, it is a process. It definitely was a process, but
Good on you, man.
yeah, yeah, I felt so. It made it feel that much better when I climbed it. It was like I overcame that fear and did it, and at the end of the day, I did this incredible line that was one of the more inspiring things I've climbed in a long time, and to add that element to it as well, to have to overcome the fear, it kind of adds. It's all about experience. That's it right there. It's part of it. Like whether it's middle of nowhere or it's something that you had to overcome and get it done, like that's a huge part of the experience, and that's what makes things so special. And whether or not that kind of line could be the best line in the world, I don't know. But for me personally, experience wise, that was huge. So we'll always remember that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's cool. God, it is a freaking beautiful line too, and what a
Mm,
setting.
yeah.
So you're going back to Switzerland, and you keep going back, man. And you've traveled all over the world. You've climbed on probably most things that you want to climb on throughout the world, or had an opportunity to. But you're now based in Tahoe, and it sounds like you're staying because it's amazing here.
Mm,
But you keep going to Switzerland, and what is it about Switzerland? It seems like there's a crew that kind of pilgrimages there every year. Is
mm.
it just unlimited? Like, what keeps bringing you back there?
I think, in terms of climbing, it is pretty unlimited. Like there's so much rock there, and there's so many good lines. There's so much developing still to do, which obviously I'm really inspired by. And there's a bunch of hard lines too. If you want to test yourself on some of the hardest things in the world, those things are there. Typically, I don't go there for those things. I usually go there to develop new lines and to hike and find cool stuff, and put, leave the mark there. Putting up just because you can. I mean, it's just insane. Like there are so many amazing projects there that are of all grades and difficulty. I mean, sitting around, and you can really just do some of the best things in the world, like right there off the side of the road. Like you don't even have to hike very far there. It's like there's just so much potential, um, that you're just picking gems all day, every day. And then the other side of that, Switzerland, I have been going there for a really long time, so I've kind of created like a community there in a way. Like I have friends that live there, like obviously Giuliano, but there's also another homie, Aegon, and his wife, Julia, and they just had a kid this a few years ago. And so, they climb, they're sport climbers more, and we don't even climb that much together when I'm there, but I'll go and I stay with them, and they're, we're just close, and we're, it's part of that vibe. I just love the culture there. I love the people, the climbing, the food, like everything about it. It's just it's a really special place to me. So, yeah, I'll continue to go there for many years, even if I'm not climbing very hard anymore. Or this year, I almost was like, wasn't gonna go, and I was like, what? I might go for like 10 days. Literally, just go for 10 days just to see my friends there. Like literally, just to go see my friends, climb a little bit, and jet out. Like, it's a cool place because it's amazing, and but also I've kind of, it feels like a second home in a way. So it's pretty special.
It's one of my favorite things about climbing is that you went another notch up in how often you've gone, but I love the feeling of, what do I say? It's almost like being at home anywhere. Like I remember
Mm,
I was in China in Yangshuo, and I bumped into two different people that I knew that just happened to be there. And you're like, no, dude, we're in China. Like, how are you here too? And then you start making a whole community there. And I just, it's one of my favorite things about climbing is traveling the world, yet somehow being in this exotic place and then feeling like your community is there with you. And still haven't been to Switzerland though. So
Oof, you got to
yeah, I
go.
know, I know. How's the child care there? Can I find a Swiss nanny to help me out?
I bet we could
That
sort
would
it
be.
out. We could sort it out.
Uh, I'm gonna hold you to that. Uh, so, but so you're now calling Tahoe home, and I did a whole episode with Roman about kind of what I was calling like a golden era for Tahoe because you guys are out there just developing, and I'm just wondering, you could choose to make almost anywhere home, and you've made Tahoe your home, and what makes it special here? And I know it's going to be a blend of what we talked about, but just like, what do your days look like here? Like, what does a week look like for you when you're developing and it's maybe the perfect season and the powder isn't quite so good, more
Yeah,
climbing focused?
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, Tahoe is just kind of setting like centrally located around like just so much climbing, so much rock. Um, then there's just so much here. It's definitely a bit more adventurous. Like maybe the areas are a little bit more spread out. Maybe there's not so many concentrated zones, but there's rock literally everywhere. So if I want to go hiking or go look for boulders, I can literally walk like out of my back door and go and look at a new boulder. I literally don't even have to get in my car. Or I can drive 5 minutes, I can drive 10 minutes, I can drive 40 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, like in all directions, and there's rock. So it's a very special place, I think, especially for someone who likes developing new stuff. I mean, so much potential here. There's a lot of people have been climbing here for a long time. There's plenty of old schoolers that have done some amazing developing here over the years. But there's just literally that much rock that there can be multiple golden eras. Whereas like people were here doing new boulders or doing new routes or whatever, and then more people come like a decade later or a decade later after that, and there's still more to do. Like it's just crazy, and that's the one thing that really drew me to this place when I first came out here was just feeling like I can go in any direction and find adventure, like and be out in the woods and there's no one there and it's really quiet and the forests are beautiful, and it's right here out the back door. Accessibility is insane. Climbing focus. That's the base. That's it. It's like it's just perfect.
Oh, and there's also Lake Tahoe. If you're into beautiful lakes or alpine, actually the alpine lakes are, like all the other lakes are even cooler because it's not just a bunch of wake surfers. Nothing wrong
Right.
with that.
No, it's a gorgeous place. It's gorgeous here.
To me, one of the things that I put out there that I think is really important, that I know you're just out there doing your thing, which is amazing, but I think it's special also because you're putting up hard climbs, which begets a new generation of hard climbers. So just like you're saying, maybe golden era is the wrong term because it's like another era. It's a new era of development, and then you get to have people stand on your shoulders that will do those next climbs. And I think I find it really important because it seemed like Colorado was the only place someone could go if they wanted to climb really hard climbs. And that's not true. I'm not saying there's not V15s in other places, but if you really wanted to test yourself and find out what you were made of when you were younger and get to climb hard, it seemed like, and maybe you feel differently, but it seemed like Colorado was kind of like this sinkhole that you had to go through to do that. And I feel like you guys are making the Tahoe scene something like that.
For sure. I definitely agree. I mean, growing up, Colorado was like the place to go for the hardest climbing in the world. And I mean, it probably still is. I mean, like, especially in the States, I mean, the amount of hard climbing that's there is staggering. I mean, there's V13 and above everywhere. And I don't even know how many there are. Over 1,000? I mean, it's crazy. Um, and then Tahoe is maybe obviously lesser known for its difficult boulders because I think before I came here there wasn't so many hard problems. At least maybe up to 13. I think Roman had developed a couple of those hard boulders that were here at that time, but there was only a couple. So since then, like, with just this influx of, myself being here and Roman, and then Fitzy been driving up, and Keenan, and, all these guys, Carlo, then we've really started to put it on the map for hard climbing. And there is a very high concentration of hard climbing here now. And it's cool. And there's a bunch of lines that are out there that you can see videos of, or maybe you've already heard of. But there's also some hard ones that we've done that you have no clue about, like, that I haven't said anything about. I don't post everything that I climb. I don't post very often in general. It's pretty bad. But I don't. It's just, I'm like, it's like being in the southeast. I'm like, come over here, come over, and like say hey, like hit me up, message me, like let's go. I'll show you all kinds of stuff. Like there's tons of stuff here.
I think that's cool. And I know you well enough to know that you and Roman and that whole crew actually is very welcoming, inviting, and like, oh,
For sure.
do you want to see? Do you want to see it? Because if you're the kind of person that wants to have that adventure, like, then you're one of us. That's fine. Like,
Totally.
but I guess I just think it's really cool. Again, because I just think it really gives back to the community in this way that like inspires the young ones, and just without that flywheel, like, you need someone out there pushing it. And so maybe Tahoe will never have as high a density or have as many hard problems, but that's not really the point. It's like, but it will have its own vibe, and it will push a new generation. And I just think that's really important. So I was really happy as a guy who's been in this area my whole life. And actually, dude, I was climbing up in Donner Summit back in like the mid 90s, and there wasn't really any boulders. And then,
Mhm.
I do know that whole era of like Dustin, say, just there was a whole era, and
For sure.
keeping that going. I'm just glad that someone picked up the mantle. And yeah, that crew is so. On this topic of the newer generation, you were just talking about climbing with like Sean Bailey. I know there was just this past winter there was a crew. There is continually a crew roaming around Bishop, Red Rocks, pushing it. And something I'm interested in hearing, because you've been around for a while, is about this new generation. And you know are is the V17 grade established now, or are these kids really pushing the limit? Because it sure feels like something has changed in the past couple of years, and it's always gradual, but it just kind of feels like there's a cohort of a new generation that has really taken that torch and continuing to push it. And so I was just wondering if you feel the same way, or if I'm just inventing something.
No, 100%. I mean, there's some crazy strong climbers these days. I mean, obviously they're like kind of coming out of the woodwork. There's so many new climbers. There's so much more beta, and like, just climbing is evolving so much, and so it's only natural that the level is going to evolve. And these kids are strong, man. Like the stuff that these guys are doing. I mean, Sean Bailey in particular recently has been on an absolute tear, doing some of the gnarliest things that anyone has ever climbed. And it's super fucking inspiring. It's super cool to watch. It might not be my cup of tea anymore to like trying to focus on doing those hard things. And even if I was, I don't think I could, like these kids are on another level, man. Like I've climbed with Sean a lot. I've climbed with Sean Rabitou a bunch. And I mean, it is super impressive what these guys are able to do. Like, and some of the strongest climbers in Europe too. Like I've never climbed with Will Bosey, and everybody knows he's absolutely insane right now. But I've climbed on boulders that he's shit on. So I know like the level is crazy. It's cool, and that's inspiring. That's pretty rad to see that level continue to rise. And yeah, I don't know where that ceiling actually is. Like where it tops out at. Like
It doesn't. It
I,
doesn't. It
yeah,
can't. Yeah.
I don't think so. But I mean,
I mean, but Jim, that's exactly what the generation was saying about you. It's like he flashed, like he flashed Kings of Salerto, or like he did what, and so
mm-hmm,
we were talking about this before, this idea of just being witness to it as a youngster, and then just like you were talking about with Jeremy Walton, you see it in front of you, and it's just it's so fascinating. Like when you have people with these new eyes, they kind of see what comes before them, and then they have a different view of the world. And then when they put into practice, like, dude, I mean, I said it a million times where I was so psyched for Sean doing devolution, like just,
Hmm.
I don't know, man. Like I was like,
So wicked, dude.
wow, dude,
So
so
wicked.
cool.
In two
Good
sessions
on
too.
him.
In two sessions. It's crazy. Like people have been trying that thing for like forever, and I've seen very strong climbers try that fit the box too, and yeah, 2 sessions. That shit's nuts. That shit was crazy. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, I mean, what you're saying is like how I became really strong is I saw what was possible before me. People like Chris Sharma, Fred Nicole, Dave Graham, Tony Lamprecht, like all of these strong climbers back in the day, they rose the bar, and they put it right here, and we were able to sit there and get stronger and say that's possible. Like we can see that is doable, and that is a huge thing. It's like knowing that like something is possible, right? It's like you see it attainable, you see that it's been done, and you're like, I can do that. I have the personality, I have like the drive to get to that level. I know I can, and I'm going to. So, and then you get there, and then you naturally can say, okay, I'm at that level, but now what's the next level? So it's kind of like the generations are just piggybacking off of like what the previous generation did before. And, I was inspired by people that were pushing the limits, and it got me inspired to get strong and to do these amazing boulders and these test pieces that they had established. And then I was inspired to leave my mark as well, to say I want to push myself as well. I want to like find something or do something that's really hard and push the limits of what's possible. And it just keeps going. It's so yeah, I don't know where it stops.
It's something though that I think is really important is that it is very different to rise to the level that is in front of you, to meet the standard that is there. But it makes me think of the talk we were having earlier about Dave Graham, and where he's 20 deep sessions in on a project, and then he moves his foot 2 inches to the right onto a worse foothold with a better angle, and it unlocks the whole thing. And I think this is always the part I'm really fascinated in when we are talking about the best of the best, is that foray into the uncertain area and the impossible, and then sticking with it, and then having that belief. Because I think that even though you will set that bar high in your generation, it's a very different, it's a certain type of person that goes to the next level. And I think those are the people that are special, that always push the sport. And if they had been around 20 years earlier, they might have pushed it from, I'm just, like V13 to V14. But then, they're the kind of person that will always push the level. And so, I just want to like point out how important guys like you, guys like Sean, the Seans are, where it's not as simple as just rising to the level. It's going beyond that I think is special.
For sure. I totally agree. I mean, Dave Graham comes to mind and all that. Like he is so good, and he's so technically sound, and he is getting better every year, and he's still able to do some of the hardest things in the world. Like he's still having his best years. Like it's amazing. It's really cool. It's super inspiring, especially for myself. I mean, I'm getting older too, 37 this year. Dave, I think, is just in his early 40s at this point, but he's still
Mhm.
doing the raddest and the hardest things out there, and in his own way and his own style. And he's just got a really good attitude and mentality about it, and he's psyched, and he pushes himself, and he believes in himself, and that's really cool, and he's going to continue to do that. I don't know, for as long as he can walk, probably. I mean, the guy's a machine. Like it doesn't even make much sense. He's just like, and he goes every day, dude. When you're there in Switzerland with him, like he is every day, 100%
Wow.
out there doing it, like every day. And it's cool. I'm like, you have been doing this since I was like, before I started climbing. And then when I met Dave for the first time, you're like, dude, wow, he just has that energy. You're like, damn, that's cool. That inspires me. I'm psyched. I want to be doing the same thing. And then, I've been friends with Dave since I was like early 20s. So 15 years now, and he is the exact same. Hasn't
Yeah.
changed. I'm like, how? It's so impressive. Like to have that level of motivation for that long, like that's cool. Like that's very rare. You know what I mean?
It seeps out of him too. Like when you chat with him, he's got a zest that is infectious, to be honest. Like
For sure.
he's excited, and that's definitely like an important part of being out there.
Yeah.
I'm curious because Dave is such a interesting climber, and the way he dissects climbs are very Dave like. When you climb with him, or when you climb on some of, I don't know if you've ever climbed on the boulder he did the FA of, and then you got the second ascent of. But I'm just curious, like, what do you think of his beta? Like, do you ever climb it like Dave, or do you always find a different way? Because he seems so unique, but maybe it really is the best way, or for him, obviously for him. But
Yeah.
I'm just curious how far off in left field he goes with his beta, and then makes it work like a fucking wizard, the
Totally. Yeah.
wizard.
Yeah. He is literally the wizard. Yeah. Dave's beta is Dave's beta. It can definitely be, there's not very many people out there that are going to be using Dave's beta. Like Dave is very specific. He knows himself, he knows how he climbs, and he's really good at finding subtle ways around really hard moves. Like, not to say that Dave's not strong, because he is, but like he can find a way to dance his way, dance around the crux a little bit. And, with knee bars especially, he's crazy. And everyone says, oh, well, can you do anything without a knee bar? Like, can you even climb that without a knee bar? And it's like, maybe he can, maybe he can't, but like, can you do his knee bars? Hell no, dude. Like, there are some crazy things that he does that I am not a slouch in the knee bar realm. Like I like knee bars. I'm decent at those things, but there are a lot of knee bars out there and a lot of beta in general that Dave does that I'm not good enough. Simple. Not that I'm not strong enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not as technically sound as he is. And yeah, sometimes I'll use his beta, but or maybe a hybrid of his beta in my beta. But like a lot of times we have different sequences for the same climb for sure. Like can climb it completely differently, and yeah, it's still definitely the same grade. It's like that's impossible, and there's not many people that are going to do that way. Like Dave's on another planet over there. Like it's
I
pretty
can't
cool.
believe people would call Dave a knee bar, trick pony. I don't remember a long time ago Dave necessarily doing a million knee bars either. He just sees the value and is taking it to a level that my guess is that other people will probably follow his lead, and he's taking it to places that people don't understand yet. And actually, dude, I speaking of knee bar, I was trying to do off the couch, or is like doing off the couch that thing,
Uh-huh.
and you do. I don't know, maybe Roman sent me a video of you doing it. Oh no, it was Sander, of you doing your knee bar method, and I just could not make that work.
Right.
I was just like, what are you doing there? And then you make it look so easy, and I had to do it a very non-Dave way, a very thuggy, powerful, forcing it way.
Right.
But it is cool to see. This is what's so special about people finding these little threads as they go to this. He's a V16 knee bar, and how many other people in the world are a V16 knee bar? Maybe none yet,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
someday people come along and learn that approach too.
For sure. I mean, they see him doing it. It's the same thing. It's like you see what's possible. You understand that's how people do that, and you want to try it yourself, and you implement the same things, and you get better. You get more experience, and then maybe you could be as good as Dave at knee barring, and maybe you could get better. It's like and not to say that he's just an e-bar, obviously. Like he is really technical in all kinds of other regards, like bad feet, like body tension, that kind of stuff. He's really good, and he understands that he climbs the way he climbs. He understands the subtleties of climbing and like the shoes that he needs to make something work. I mean, he's got like 9 shoes out there, like switching them around, like seeing which one fits best, what works better, even if it's the exact same shoe. Like but a newer version of
Wow.
the exact same shoe or an older version of the exact same shoe, like or maybe the shape somehow is subtly different. And he notices those little fucking things, and it almost seems too much, I think, to a lot of people, but for him it's very important. And it's like those little like things that are like, oh yeah, that's it, totally, and I believe that that's it, so that's what I'm gonna do, and that totally fucking works, and then I do the boulder. It's like it's a whole thing, and everyone's on that level to some degree, and Dave is just on the next level. And people could argue that that's ridiculous, and I wouldn't. I would say it's ridiculous in a cool way, and And I've seen proof is in the fucking pudding, dude. Like he does it all the time. Like, and you're like, damn, Dave, how did you did it again, dude? Like, what? You sent the rig? What the hell? Like, it's crazy.
Again and again and again. Yeah, you made
Yeah,
that comment about almost like, is it the belief? There's like a factor of just, is that, change that he made, the we call it placebo, right? But placebo is a real thing. Like, if
mm-hmm.
it works, it works. It's like, that's the
Totally.
definition of placebo. It makes me think of seeing the video where he was like ticking his shoe for like where
With the
to
toe
put a
hook.
certain thing. And I
Yep.
was like, this is obvious, but not obvious. And why don't I do that? And it also, dude, I don't know if you heard the pod I did with Carlo on the dark side, but I was really, really impressed with, he talked about all the different chalks he would use, and a chalk that he had just opened the fresh bag so that the humidity was different.
Right.
And just that willingness to venture into another factor. And he's like, I didn't figure out anything perfect. It was just a way for me to change the conditions in that moment if I wasn't happy with what the results were currently. And I
Totally.
was amazed at that. I thought it was super, super cool.
Yeah, that stuff matters. Those subtle things change the outcome. It can change the outcome, you know. And I think like what we've been talking about, the mental side of that is just it's like helping fuel the flame, and the flame being like the belief that you can do something. So it's like little subtle like helping hints like, oh yeah, okay, that actually matters and that helps, and like, oh, okay, cool, I'm inspired again. I can do this thing. I believe I can climb this boulder. And that's the thing with like projecting hard boulders in general, is like you have to have a little bit of belief somewhere along the road. If you're always negative and always being like, it's not working, it's not working, it's not working, I can't do this thing, you're never going to climb it. So for me, like I really like every time I leave a session on a hard boulder, if it's the 20th session, the 40th session, the 6th session, doesn't matter. I always try to find some positive outcome around that session, like where it can be super subtle. It can be the tiniest little thing, like the shoe, like, oh, the shoe fits better in this little foot or this little pocket, or I like clocked my heel out a little bit more and opened my left hip and extended this way a little bit, and it made that move a lot better. I mean, just subtle things. Like I didn't do the boulder today, but there was this one moment that like, that I'm psyched about. And that kind of rejuvenates you to go home and then sit there and think about it and go, yep, I can do this thing. I know I can do this thing. I figured out that beta, that shoe, that whatever, that chalk. It's all these little things. And it really is important, and it really does help. It keeps the morale high, because in that realm, failure is inevitable and you're failing all the time. So, and if you just think you're a failure and you think nothing's working, then you're going to be a failure and nothing's going to work.
Oh man, climbing is so fun. You said this thing that I wrote down because I just didn't want to miss out on it. You said, I might be paraphrasing, something like, fuck yesterday, tomorrow I'll do it, or like, or today I'll do it, or something. And it was just this really important concept for me, where it didn't matter what had happened before, and still having that confidence that today is a new day and I'm going to do it. Yes, I know that I somehow made backwards progress, and like, or maybe I
Mm-hmm.
broke a key foot, but it's like, no, today is a new day. And I just,
Yeah.
I feel like I can't hear that enough, because it's so like, sometimes when we talk about, God, it's just super, super ridiculous. It's like positive mental attitude. Like, people talk about it, but and it's like nice to talk about, but then you go deep and you're bummed by yourself and you hear that shit and you're just like, yeah, but I don't care. Like, it's not helping right now. And so just emphasizing that idea of, no, I know, but fuck yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, today's a new day.
Yeah. You have to go into each session with a little bit of motivation, a little bit of psych, a little bit of positive reinforcement. And yeah, I mean, you're frustrated in the moment. Sometimes it doesn't go very well to like hear someone else be like, you should be more positive about it. You got this. And you're like, I don't need that right now. Like, I need like this. I need to like sort my shit out. Like, I don't need someone else telling me like, it's like, I need to believe. I need to, and a lot of times I'll be frustrated after a session, or but within the session. But typically when I have left the boulder, I usually let things go, and I start to create those little things in my head like, okay, well, I felt good on that section, like, or I felt good on that move, or I know why I didn't feel good today. Like, it's okay. Tomorrow's another day. Be inspired, by something, find something subtle about your session to come away with, because at the end of the day, like you can learn something every session. If you're willing to like pay attention and listen and like pay attention to your body and find something positive about the session, you can and you will. And that, I mean, that shit's just so fucking important to, for me, 100% super important. So
By the way, I talked to Martin Keller right before talking with you, and he says hi, by the way. And
cool.
he's a good example of, well, of someone who's getting older and still absolutely crushing, but also someone who's willing to show up again and again and again and again
Yeah.
and keep pushing forward. And Martin Keller is actually a good example of someone who's has this unique quality or somewhat unique quality of really showing up stubbornly forever. And we talked about Dave and his, I mean, I don't want to distill him down to a knee bar, but that's almost just like a symptom of who he is and how he showcases his ability on rock. Is there any other traits that you've encountered in specific, probably pros, that you've been like, wow, that's cool, I admire that? Maybe you try to, or I'm guessing that you, like everyone else, tries to kind of imbibe some of that and be like, oh, I'd like a little bit more of that in my ability. And
Hmm.
I well, I don't want to lead you into anyone. I'm just curious if there's anyone that you can think of that that have that similar kind of something je ne sais quoi about some special aspect in their climbing.
I mean, yeah, I could talk about so many people. I mean, a lot of the best climbers in the world that had the pleasure of climbing with throughout my life has something special about them. Like they have a thing that you're like, damn, like that's one of the things that sets that guy apart. Daniel, for example, Daniel is like one of the best at just being headstrong and just being able to go back day in and day out and just keep banging his head against the wall. Like he's really good at it and he's really positive. He can be frustrated in the session, but like I said, he's very positive. He believes in himself. And, when I first started climbing with D way back in the day, I mean, that was a huge thing that was important for me to see. And I love it. I love that about Daniel. I also love Daniel because he doesn't care what he looks like. He doesn't care if he's climbing like shit in front of a bunch of people. Like he's like, I'm gonna sit here and keep trying this thing. Like, even if people are like, why can't Dazer do that thing? That's weird. Daniel can climb everything, but he can't climb that right now. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. He's like, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna climb on this thing and I'm gonna figure it out and I'm gonna like sort the beta and it's gonna take me maybe a little bit of time right now, but fuck it. And he doesn't care. He's not thinking about what other people are thinking about, like him or whatever. And then one thing that's cool about D2 is it might take him a little bit more time to sort a boulder or a move in particular. But when he does it once, it's like suddenly on repeat. And like he can just do it every freaking time. And that's always been something pretty cool and inspiring for me to see. Just be like, damn, like once he does it once, he'll never fall in the move again. Like it's crazy. It might take him 3 hours to do the move, but once he does it once, he figures out the subtle body position. He does it every time.
That's fascinating. Yeah, he definitely came to mind for me as someone with a specific trait. But what's funny is that what I was going to pick out, I can't remember. I discussed this on the pod with another guest. I can't remember. Is Daniel seems to do this thing where he's like overly static, almost like he like locks things off to a point where he has all the time in the world to get the next hold just right. And I'm always like watching him. I'm like, dude, how do you have the energy for this? But it almost makes me think of like Jimmy. When I see you climb, I often see you do these moves. It almost looks like you have an extra half second right before you grab a. You kind of like do a move and you grab it just perfectly. And you kind of have this like little float to it. And I don't know. I'm curious if you do that on purpose or if that's just something that comes out of you, or even a comment on Daniel. And like, do you see that too? Where I'm just like, dude, you're just overpowering the shit out of that hole. And I love it. It's the most, I
Yeah,
love watching it. I really do.
yeah. No, yeah. I mean, that's just Daniel's style. He's very static climber. He's very strong in that way, and that's how he operates. It's just Deezer mode. Like we just call it like he goes into four low. Like he just goes into this. he hits this different gear that just is like insane to watch. It's really cool to see. Like the amount of power that he has is nuts. I mean, it's like there's not many climbers that I personally have climbed with in my life that have that level of power. Like it's insane. I think it's just everyone is their different type of climber, and Deezer is just one of those dudes that just locks everything down past his waist, like, and he's really good
Mhm.
at it. It's cool to see him in his element is like such an impressive thing to watch. Like, and everyone has their little like thing, and growing up climbing, like I started climbing like with when I was climbing with pros, at least in the beginning, I was climbing with Dave, I was climbing with Daniel, I was climbing, with a bunch of strong climbers, and I was inspired by like their style and their beta and the way that they moved, and that shaped me also as a climber, like being like, oh man, like I really like that style, I just love that shit. It's like one person that comes to mind when I was younger watching climb was Ty Landman. Like he just had this flow about him, like it was like super gangster when you watched him climb. Like it was like so cool and inspiring, and it's kind of like style mattered to him. It's like I did the boulder, but I want to do it in this cool way and like this cool style, and I love that. Because it's that matters obviously in the snowboard world a shitload, and it's cool to see that link up with climbing too, where you're like, that guy did the boulder and he did it so sick looking, like that vibe, like
I mean,
just
Jimmy, that's what we say about you, man. Like you definitely have a style of about how you climb. I think everyone kind of has their climber that they aspire to be. Like there's going to be people who are like, I want to be. I mean, in the era of Chris and Dave, it was like it's like which kind of guy are you? And I know it's
yeah,
not, it shouldn't be that binary, but it kind of feels like it sometimes. I want to be like that. Do
yeah.
you like what are you the best at, or were you the best in the world at? Like if I had to pin you down, or and maybe you're not the best person to ask because sometimes it's the people who watch you that know better, but Daniel may lock things off to his knee, and what really makes you feel like you're in your wheelhouse?
um for me, I feel like I climb with a bit more like momentum. Like I'm not very strong at like locking things down and really static motions. That I wouldn't say that that's my anti-style, but I'm definitely wouldn't say it's my style. Like I definitely climb with a little bit more momentum. I use my legs a lot. Like I feel like my legs are so massive in my climbing. I think that's how I've gotten so good at crimping too. Is like I might not be the strongest fingers in the world, but like I know how to use my body and get my body into positions and pull with my feet so much that I can take a little bit of weight off the hands. So yeah, I think my style is definitely more opposite of Deezer for sure. Definitely more jumpy, definitely more flowy. I don't know. It's hard to describe exactly, but yeah, I like that style. I like jumping around. I like um, all kinds of different stuff. Really, I mean, Jesus, I don't know. It's pretty interesting. Definitely opposite of Deezer though. Like I come with Daniel and I'm like, dude, I can't even. Like, what are you doing right now? Like, it's crazy what you're doing right now. I think a lot of people actually feel that way around D though. It's like not just me. This is like a very universal situation. Sean says the same thing. He's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, that's insane. Like, I can't believe you're doing that. Like, I think Sean and I climb pretty similarly actually. Like, he's more of like a flow climber too. Um,
Is this Sean Bailey or
Rabbitoo,
Rabbitoo?
Rabbitoo, yeah,
Rabbitoo. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, he's got a style to him too that's really unique and interesting, and yeah, flowy, fun to watch.
yeah.
Yeah, I always just remember the few times I've climbed with Daniel, and it's not everything that he does that blows your mind, but then he just does something casually, and you just don't quite. I didn't. It doesn't quite compute. Like I don't quite know why he did it like that and why it was so easy for him. And it was interesting. I went back and watched that video of defying gravity after Nathaniel and Noah did it, and just kind of like wanted to go back and watch that video, you guys, and just how different you are on it. He's
Totally,
got he found his way and you found your way, and that's and it's special each way too.
for sure. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that was a cool experience, and I don't think anybody's gonna climb that thing like the way that Daniel climbed that thing. I mean, that's nuts. That's nuts.
Well, isn't it cool that Noah campused it? I thought that was really interesting too.
That
I
is cool.
just,
Yeah, I don't know if we ever even tried that. I don't even know if we ever even tried that. Didn't that's that kind of thing just didn't compute. Like, no, we got to go
yeah.
pretty far. We need a foot. Like,
Or I got ask you, just came to mind because we're talking about that climb. There's always this question about what is maybe the one of the hardest moves in the world. You've climbed on a lot of hard boulders. What moves really stuck out? And I know each climber is different. Each person's going to have different difficulty with different moves. And hell, even on that move we're talking about, it was done three different ways. So how do you even say, you know, who's doing it the hardest way or the easiest way or what the move is? But when you think about all the climbs you've been on, is there any singular moves that you think are, up there?
I mean, that one in particular, for sure, is definitely one of the hardest moves. Yeah, off the top of my head, I can't think of any right now, but I mean, that move in particular took us, the people that have done it the big move way, at least, like that single move, like took a lot of days, took many days for just one single move. Um, so yeah, I mean, damn, that one, that's probably up there with one of the harder moves that I've done, at least that I can think off the top of my head at the moment. But I know Nathaniel had a similar experience. I know that took him many days to do the move, probably about as many days as it took him to do the boulder, probably because I'm sure if he did the first move, he probably did the boulder. Um, at least you hope so.
Yeah, and it's
So
really straightforward. It's right there. Like
yeah, it's
the
very
holds are right
straightforward.
there.
Yeah,
It's there's not. I don't know. Actually, I was going to say there's not a ton of tricks, but then I don't know what that even means after seeing Daniel's way of doing it. Like even the most straightforward boulder, it's not straightforward at that. You have to
hmm
pull out all the tricks, all the micro beta, and
for
you know,
sure. Yeah, that move is very. It's actually way more subtle than a lot of people might think it is. For sure. It's pretty slick rock. It's really steep, so condition matters. Like the way that you pull on matters. The way that your feet get oriented on the wall, like the actual motion of the move, connecting with the heel or however you're going to do it with the foot, like and making it stay for just long enough. I mean, I actually had a conversation with Nathaniel about that before he did the boulder and kind of was like reliving the experience a little bit that I had. It was obviously quite a long time ago, so it was hard to dig too deep into it. But I do remember there were a lot of subtleties about that move that was a game changer. So physically very difficult, but also a bit more complicated than you might be able to tell on a video. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, what a freaking beautiful boulder, man. That one
Yeah,
sticks out in my head as just I don't know. It was pretty iconic when it when you guys did it. Good stuff. I always like asking that what's the hardest move in the world because it's just I don't know. It's just it's a different to me. There's something about bouldering that's different than the rest of climbing where I also am just drawn to a line. It's why I want to climb, and that's why I don't care if it's sport climbing, deep water soloing, or it's just about climbing. But sometimes it's fun to think about like that distilled version, like
for
what
sure.
that moment and that try hard is a beautiful feeling as well.
100%, 100%. Yeah, I think there's just so many hard boulders out there. It's hard to even think about one right now in particular that could have the hardest move in the world on it. But, and again, it's different for different people. Like, maybe it's the hardest move for me, but not for them, and et cetera, et cetera. So it is pretty interesting part of the game, though.
I, I just put you on the spot because it just I don't know. So it's these kind of conversations that you don't get to have with everyone because they haven't seen a lot of boulders. So
Well, I mean, shit, I
yeah,
don't know. First move of burden, too. Also really hard. Very, very hard move.
you
So
have been out there, huh?
I
You did
did,
go
yeah.
out there many moons ago. Yeah,
Long time ago. What the season before Nolly did it, I think. I was there for like a Sisu Masters, and he took me out there and we had a session on it one day. Yeah,
yeah. Good on
yeah,
Nolly. Great addition to the climbing world. Just
for
putting up
sure,
some great stuff. Great vision from that guy too.
dude. His original beta on that thing was so crazy. That was so nuts. His original beta was impossible. I tried it with him that day, and I actually came up with the walk and the feet to the right beta, um, because the way he was trying it was insanely impossible. Like I was like, there's no way I'll ever climb it like this. And so I was like, my weak ass has to like find this foot out here, and like maybe then it would work, you know. But um, and then I think he ended up adopting some of that, like maybe as a hybrid of the two. But yeah, it was pretty. That was a huge moment in climbing for sure. It's super cool.
Funny how it just kind of disappeared and then became in vogue. I don't know. It's why it's so cool what you're doing out there, putting up these climbs. It's not always clear what will be the one that really has that legacy that people love. It's, there's climbs that I've climbed that I think are just incredible and beautiful and then seem to somehow not be that popular. And I'm like, no, have you done this? Like,
Yeah,
it's special, but I will say, cause I climbed out with Roman, it's called Lost Souls in Boreal by Outer Limits. I was like, this has got to be one of the best V10s in California, but I don't know
yeah.
if anyone does it. Like no one even cares, I'm
I
like,
don't think it's
so
yeah, I don't think that one's done that often. Yeah, but it's very good. It's very good. Welcome to California, though. I mean, come on. There's or Tahoe in general. So many great lines, and there's not really many people here climbing them.
well, I don't think we have to worry about getting crowded. I think maybe it's, 5 years, 10 years from now, people will start, appreciating all the work you're putting in out there.
Yeah,
And thanks for having those adventures. And you're going to attract your vision is going to appeal to a certain type. I mean, you've put up, you've been prolific even in the normal areas where people don't have to go and battle grizzly bears. So I appreciate that, but I also think you're kind of like leaving a breadcrumb trail for a generation that's like, oh, if you like that, you're gonna, or if you like this, you're really gonna like that, and
totally.
come find out. So that's so cool, man. So cool.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm psyched. I think that's a huge part about, developing new lines is it's really cool to see people come and to appreciate the fact that we're developing new stuff in cool areas or new areas, in general, not just boulders, but new zones and stuff like that. I think that's really cool. And people are like, oh, that's so cool. And they come and they climb and that's great. I really appreciate that. I think that's rad and that's part of it. But when I see that energy being sparked in someone else, that shit gets me inspired. I like that because this shit means a lot to me. And I think climbing in general these days is there's a lot of hype around grades and how hard something is and like how many days it might have taken that person to climb the boulder and all this stuff. And I think that's cool, to have those metrics of like how difficult something is. But I don't, it's, you don't see that many people out there that are just gung ho on developing and finding new areas. And I think that part of our climbing world is not as highly regarded or not talked about as often and not appreciated as much. But I love seeing people get psyched to do that stuff because I'm like, who's coming up that's going to do that? Who's going to, like when I'm too old to be developing hard and rad boulders, or Daniel, or all these other guys, Dave, and who's going to come up and do it? Who's going to not only just go and do the hardest projects in the middle of these massive areas, but who's going to go find these new amazing boulders and develop them? And I love seeing new climbers that get inspired by that and to actually want to go out and do their own search, and to find their own way and to start to develop new areas and new climbs and all that stuff. I think that stuff's so cool, and that gives me a lot of satisfaction when I see people getting motivated to do a similar thing.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe I just assume that when people look up to these climbers that have come before, that they get inspired to follow in those footsteps. And the people that we hold up on pedestals are really those ones that have ventured into the unknown and done something special. And I always think about Chris Sharma as for my era, for our era,
For sure.
being someone who went up, did everything, and then continued to push into the unknown. And I was just talking with Matty Hong about Majorca, and something that just really hit him hard was that Chris was out there doing these crazy lines over the ocean. People are like, deep water soloing, what the hell is that? But no,
Right.
he had his vision and he was doing it by himself. So I just have this faith that these heroes of our sport, that you had heroes, people are going to look up to you, that, they hear you and they're inspired by what you've done. And so then they take up the mantle in their own unique way.
For sure.
And, I bounce back and forth with this, Jimmy, where like I was in that era where it's, you don't talk about grades. In some ways, you don't even talk about what you did. It's just like, hey, it's special out there. You should go too.
Hmm.
But I think it's undeniable that the chatter about grades and strength, like it's almost like I think of it as like baseball stats. You're
Right.
like, you can only play the game so much. You can only be out there
Yeah.
playing baseball so much. But if you really love it, then you kind of get sucked into these areas. So hopefully I didn't make you talk about grades and all this stuff too much, because it's
No.
part of it, but I don't want to cloud over like those moments where you're hungry, but you're with your buddies and you're afraid of grizzlies, but you're sketching out a top out and your skin's bad, and you come down, you're like, whoa, like that was special. Like, I
Totally.
want that to get encapsulated for other people too.
For sure. Yeah. I just think that's a cool part of the climbing world that maybe isn't as talked about as much. And it's a very special, for me, it's a very special part of it. So it's cool that to see people that get inspired to do a similar situation, to get out and get out in the unknown and get scared a little bit, maybe, have experiences.
Get scared a little. Get off the
Gets,
deck.
yeah.
Go out some grizzlies. Yeah.
Yeah. Go hide from grizzlies, like all that shit. Yeah. It's cool.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. Did you by any chance prepare a pro tip for us? Even though I've just gotten like a million of them from you in the last 2 hours, but yeah, if you
Uh,
got anything else to add, we would love it.
yeah. I don't know. I honestly forgot. And then like right before we started the podcast, I was like, oh yeah, pro tip. And I think
Get scared.
the pro tip, honestly, is pretty similar to that. I think it's get out of your comfort zone, whether that's has something to do with your climbing style. If you hate crimping, all those types of stuff. Yeah, search for new experiences. Get out of your comfort zone. Go to cool new zones. Go hike around. Look for some rocks. It's a really rewarding experience, in my humble opinion. So I think it's rad. And yeah, just get out of your comfort zone. I think that's important in all aspects of climbing. So I think it will make you a better climber in the end, and a more well-rounded climber in the end. And I think in the end of the day, all of us that are obsessed with rock climbing want to get better. So I think having that mentality is pretty important.
Great, man. That was awesome. I love it. And the other thing I want to add that's just been kind of a sub theme throughout this whole pod is go out there, have those experiences, and then usher in the young guy that's psyched, and show him or her that special adventure. Not I'm not saying this to you, Jimmy, because you already do it, but just everyone out there, like, if you know what we're talking about and you've had those experiences, like, hold it to yourself, but then try to find a time to pass the torch. Because the guidebooks, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying anything bad about the growth of the sport, but let's also try to keep passing that special experience along. And I know I'll do it for my kids at least, and hopefully I've done it to some other climbers as well. But thanks for doing that, Jimmy. Appreciate it.
For
Really do.
100%. Yeah. Fuck yeah.
All right, man. We covered a lot. I kept you on for longer than most because there's just too much wisdom you got in there. But there was a million more things that we could have never gotten to. So thanks for your time, and thanks for your contributions. And can't wait to do it again sometime in the future.
Heck yeah. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
All right, Jimmy. Have fun in Switzerland, man.
I will.
Enjoy. And
Definitely.
across more powder days, more days in the backcountry, more adventure. Good stuff, man. Take care.
Sweet. All right. You too.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like even more content, go to patreon.com/testpiece. And while you're at it, share this podcast with someone you know who would love it. And please leave us a review or rating at wherever you get your podcasts. We've also got tons of great content on YouTube and Instagram, so don't forget to like and subscribe there. Okay, see you next week.